recorded live from the secret underground lair of Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles. This is the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast.
The following issues may contain spoilers. Welcome to a very special Crimson Cowl Comic Club Mighty Con Milwaukee recap. I'm Anthony.
And I'm David.
This is an interesting special, something that we haven't done. Anytime we talk about convention recaps, it happens on the Crimson Cowl Comic Club proper, talking about coming back from a con, talking about the meet and greets and the art that I buy and all that kind of stuff. But this one is a very special one because at the Milwaukee Mighty Con 2023 that happened on September 2nd, myself and David were there as vendors represented under Crimson Cowl Media. So now, while Crimson Cowl Comics has been there at cons before, David alongside Kurt, this is the first time that me and David have been side by side, especially for the first time as artists. So what we're going to do in this video here is kind of talk about our experience of going into the con, how it was at the con, and just kind of our overall thoughts. And as long as schedules are working, we should have some artist friends from the show that we will clip in at a later time. So what we're going to do here, I want to actually start with David because all of this starts with you. It starts with you co-creating Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles, turning that into Crimson Cowl Media. There's a lot of Crimson Cowls and comics and collectibles.
It's got to the point where we just slap Crimson Cowl on stuff. It's the brand.
This all started with you, and your intentions were to go into this con selling some basically some leftover inventory from the old storefront, and then it kind of evolved in even more. You were going to advertise some stuff with your own creations, and then you brought me on. But I want to start with you, kind of your adventure with kind of your purpose for going into Milwaukee Mighty Con originally.
Okay, well, the original purpose was is with Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles. Of course, I've been to several of these, the Mighty Con ones, the Milwaukee and Madison, and I have that experience going in as a vendor and selling, like you said, with Kurt, who is my former business partner with the store. My intention was to go with a different partner, my son, David, or longtime listeners, whatever, might know him as Other David, because we've been working on stuff for Crimson Cowl Media together. His web comic, I do it with him, but it was really his thing, Tales from the North. And so as we were doing that, and he was wanting to get into really being an artist, probably more full-time and everything, and I had been doing some writing and always dabbling with the art, but not where I thought, okay, I'm going to be an artist. So that was the idea, is okay, we're going to actually use this con to kind of launch. This will be our first con together as artists, as comic creators, going out and trying to raise awareness for the cause. But David's at a stage in his life, and I'm not going to get too much into his personal business, where he's kind of putting things on hold as far as art. We are still working on a few things. I'm not sure at this point if he's going to continue on with Tales from the North. He is going to continue on with the art on Revenge of the Atomic Alien Zombie, which is a project that we've been working on for a while now. So that we're still working on together. But he really wasn't sure that he had the interest in doing the cons, to sit there and show off his art, or to sit there and draw for people and to do commissions and whatever. He wanted to draw what he wanted to draw. So he's like, I'm not really sure that I want to do the convention thing. And he backed out of that, which left me thinking, okay, you know what? He waited until after I got the table to make me aware of this. And I thought, okay, not a problem. I got enough space because I've got all this extra stuff left over from the old store days. I've got a large number of trade paperbacks, graphic novels, just books, and some other collectibles. So thought, okay, well, we'll set that up. And then once it was just me, I'm like, okay, well, now I've got some extra space. Probably don't need quite all that much. And Anthony, you were you'd really been doing the art for a while now. But you were getting to the point where I thought, Anthony might be interested in going to a con and, hawking his wares, showing his stuff at a table and, seeing what kind of interest that garners. So I invited you along, and of course you said yes, but that's how that came about. And as the extra pitch, for it was, hey, I've been to these several times, so you don't have to it's not like you're just going blindly to one of these for the first time. And of course you've been to many of them as a consumer, right? But never on the other side of the tables. Well, never on the other side of the tables intentionally.
Yeah. I'll get into that part of my little thing. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
that's how it came about.
Yeah, and when you had brought that up, I think it initially started with like, hey, you can talk about, the Crimson Cowl Comic Club, and I'm like, oh, it'll be fun to hang out with you, and just be on that side of the table. And I think that was even before started thinking like, hey, I could sell stuff there. So talking about Crimson Cowl Comic Club, and then I think you were the one that mentioned like, oh, if you're talking about Cartoonist by Night and everything. And for those that don't know, I am a co-creator and host of Cartoonist by Night. It is 4 creative friends who hang out and draw on YouTube, according to the flyer here that I wrote. And once that was kind of brought up, I'm just being like, oh, that'd be kind of fun, just kind of standing there and being like, oh, I just have some information, go check it out. Once again, still not even really thinking about, the idea of selling anything. But at around that time, I forget which came first, but something was on the horizon. A quick recap is that last fall, almost a year ago in September 2022, I did some fan art of Art Baltazar and Franco's combination of characters from Oh Yeah Comics, all centered on the Gucci Nana, which is a character that was created by Art's daughter when she was just a wee little girl. And I decided to take that Gucci Nana character and redraw all of the other Oh Yeah characters of my favorites, because there's way more than this. But I just picked some of my favorites, and I went ahead and I drew them other Gucci versions of them basically. And I made this fan art, which Art called brilliant, and he said, oh, I'll put it in a future issue of Oh Yeah Comics. And I'm like, whoa, that wasn't at all part of the why I made it, And then store manager at Oh Yeah Comics in beautiful downtown Skokie, Joe Crone, had said like, hey, if you want to make a print of that, we'll sell it at the store. And that happened like last fall around this time. And I sat on that information for about a half a year, where I'm just like, I never even dreamed of thinking about doing something like that. And then leading into Free Comic Book Day, beginning of May of 2023, I'm like, you know what? I want to be down there at Oh Yeah Comics when they have their special event and their signing and hangout and stuff like that. Maybe I should make a print, and that could be the debut of it. So I got some advice from Troy Dungara from Kid Slapshot fame, as well as Cartoonist by Night, on where I should get some prints made. And I went ahead and did it. And I started selling some at the store, and it was kind of fun. I sold some to family and friends in between. But then going into the invite of Mighty Con, I'm like, well, I just have this. So I'm like, I guess I could just sell that because I have a lot of these. And then that's what kind of spawned the idea of like, hey, I should just make more prints and other things. And that's how it kind of evolved where people will eventually see the pictures on here. So that's kind of my approach to it. Was it started with, hey, that'd be fun to go and just talk about the club. Oh yeah, I could mention Cartoonist by Night. Oh, I could sell this print. And then it turned into like, well, I'm doing this.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, I'm going, oh yeah, that's right. We kind of talked about all that stuff first. It's just that between uh you getting involved and us actually doing it, we'd shifted gears and concentrated so much on the art, myself included, that I kind of forgot, like, oh yeah, you hadn't done all that stuff before. This was stuff that we were doing, gearing up for it. Just like, I'd done some art, not prints, although I do intend to do that for the next one. But just some of the things, that we talked about as you were doing it. I'm like, well, I'm starting to do this art, as David was being less involved in the art, and I'm thinking, well, I've got the website, I've got, all this stuff going on, and I've got all these ideas. I'm not going to just sit on them. I'm going to do something. So I started working on that. Then we're going into this this con down in Milwaukee, and I'm like, Anthony's going to be there at that point. Now you are starting to like, hey, I'm going to have these prints, I'm going to have this. And I started asking, okay, as an artist, what I've been there more as a vendor where I'm sitting at my table, and yes, I've done some browsing and stuff like that, but you've spent a lot of time actually doing the shopping and looking at people's art and things like that. And so I'm kind of going, what all do you bring to a con as an artist? What all do you bring to a con? And I started asking you, and you're giving me a lot of good ideas. Some of them I was able to act on. So yeah, we just started concentrating more and more on like creating a lot more art to bring into the con down in Milwaukee.
Yeah, it really transformed into a completely different beast. And around that time, as we're getting serious and talking about, what could be offered there, having been a con goer for almost 20 years now, like every single year, several of them a year, mostly the big Chicago ones. And I've definitely done these mighty cons, which I met the artist friends that hopefully will be on clipped in later into the show. Some of them will for sure. And so yeah, I was very knowledgeable because I usually live in Artist Alley. I just love just going through that, especially since COVID. I've kind of shifted a lot of my con going experience. While I've always went to Artist Alley and had a list of writers and artists that I would go and meet, I would definitely do a lot of the celebrity photo op and the normal vending, shopping and stuff. But I started during COVID, started switching to a lot of interest in original art with purchasing them, whether it's commissions, sketch cards, a whole bunch of things. And I would reduce myself to just getting one celebrity photo op rather than a dozen, because I would come back just being like, oh, I met everybody that's ever been in a movie last year. And so since COVID, I started shifting that where I just spend, almost 90% of my time in Artist Alley. And becoming friends with Art Baltazar over the last couple of years. It was actually at Mighty Con, I believe it was last year, the 2022 spring edition, where I was just there once again as a fan and just talking with them. And then he was by himself. He didn't have any helpers or his kids along or anything like that. And I told him like, hey, I'm around all day, so just send me a message if you need to run off to the bathroom or and go grab you some food or something because I'm just bumming around. Even if I'm not like constantly I just usually spend open to close at a comic convention no matter what. And then when I would swing by and show him some stuff that I picked up, eventually it's just like, oh, come and have a seat. He had an extra chair there. I'm like, oh, sure, cool. And I was like sitting back there behind the Oh Yeah Comics booth, and I'm like, oh, this feels pretty cool. And then I spent the next like 6 hours hanging with him as well as helping sell his stuff. And people would come by and I'd start, pitching things, and he would be drawing for kids on one side, while I'm, pushing his books on the other side and just saying, "Oh, this book is about this and this and that." And that turned into a C2E2 one that I would do. I think later that summer they had the August edition of C2E2 that year, and Art stepped away with his kids, and Franco was just going to watch both of their tables. But I just happened to be there at the right time, and I just told Franco, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I helped out Art. I can hang around in case it gets busy or something." And then it was me and Franco standing there managing the booths, and I've witnessed it over many a years of Art and Franco, the ginormous creative team that they are, standing there. And I was one of those guys. I was subbing in for Art at that time, and then he came back to his table. I gave him $50. I'm like, "Oh, I sold some of your stuff." And he was like, "What?" Just like, "Oh yeah, I sold this, and that." And he's like, "I should have you do this all the time." And so being on that side of the table for those two times was just pretty exciting to kind of then the following year I'd be invited back, and I would have some Harold's chicken at the oh yeah tables and stuff like that. So like having that experience on the other side felt pretty cool to kind of be in that little club, and then that's what kind of fueled my excitement, being like, "Oh yeah, I'll definitely do that for Crimson Cowl." And then the whole art thing, like I said, we were both doing that at the same time, and then it just happened to like be what it was.
Yeah, yeah, and it was great, because I didn't have to, for me, I didn't have to worry about what people thought of the art, to have a successful day at a con, because I had all this other stuff that people were going to look at, and I was given some pretty good deals on it. So I was pretty sure that people were going to come buy some stuff from me, and I'm like, but the art is there, and people can look at it and everything else, and it's there, and some sold, not as much as I would have liked to have sold, but it did get me kind of like in there a little bit, dipping my toes in that water and kind of going, okay, well, this is what I could do differently next time, having more art and displaying it in a different way and things like that. So it was really a learning experience to do this first one in that way, but also without the stress of, oh my God, I've spent the money on the tables getting here and everything else, and I'm not going to sell any of this art, but I got the other stuff. So, the tables were paid for and everything else, and I got to just enjoy the experience of it.
Yeah, and I like that idea too, thinking like, yeah, you're not just there as an artist, it's under the Crimson Cowl Media name. So it's not like it's specifically you're going up to David Gloyd's artist table or Anthony Laatsch's artist table. And I had a similar experience with, even though I was offering and putting my art out there to the public for the first time beyond the social media, just posting it, which was also new for me, starting with January, creating public art accounts under the at Anthony Laatsch handle that's below my screen here. And so other than that, I would just share it with, close friends and family and stuff like that. So starting in 2023, that's when I started just putting it out in the world and let people check it out. So when going to the con and having people check it out, I didn't have a lot of worry about not selling anything because I was there to promote the Crimson Cowl Comic Club. You and I have designed these bookmarks, which are reversible. And so I designed the Crimson Cowl Comic Club side and just had the information about our show. I'll probably put up a better image of this on the final video. And then I drew a long box of comics, which has a lot of references to Crimson Cowl Comic Club guest on our actual normal club show. And then I'm like, hey, we should make them reversible rather than I didn't want to make a business card. So that's what kind of led me to do it this way. And then I just told you, I'm like, hey, if you want to design a Crimson Cowl Media side, you went ahead and did that. Do you want to talk about what people are seeing in the more shiny image and post here?
Yeah. Okay. So, eh, what I have there is, of course, the logo for Crimson Cowl Media, the website is on there, so that people could look at this and go, okay, they have a website, maybe I'll check that out. It just says a little bit of the things that we do, and there is kind of a wide variety. I mean, we at this point we're just kind of starting, and it's going to be a slow start. So and we're kind of dabbling in these different things. Filmmaking. That's something I've been doing for a long time. I've got a number of different projects. One of them is a series of short silent films that I think you might be familiar with, Anthony. It's initially it was just the first one, which was called "Is There a Doctor in the House?" And it was kind of I had an idea for it, but we just kind of made it up as we went along, and then we did another one, and then we did another one, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna kind of put these together into more of a full movie that it stitches all these shorts together with these same characters and everything. And it's the Insignificant Adventures of Doc Oscar. Now coming up with like comic ideas, like what am I gonna do? What can I work on? If David's not involved, if I don't have an artist, what is there that I can do on my own? And one of the ideas is to do a comic version of the Insignificant Adventures of Doc Oscar. So what you're seeing there in the background art is just the uncolored version of the promotional art that I did that is on the website for the Insignificant Adventures of Doc Oscar. So it just kind of gives a little bit of a sample, a little bit of art on there with the, hey, this is who we are and this is what we do. It's got the filmmaking and the podcasts and the comics and things like that.
Yeah, and so going back to what I was saying, that I was there to promote the club. I'm like, hey, I'll be there to talk, see if people want, grab the bookmark and subscribe, just tell them about the show. And then I made the flyers for Cartoonist by Night and whipped up some pretty simple flyers there that have the information. Troy Dungara from Kid Slapshot over at Keen Spot Comics, and then Matt Fife and Matt Rogers, newly of Happy Astronaut, over at Keen Spot as well, and then myself for Crimson Cowl Comic Club. So I had these promotional items, and then at the table then too, I figured, once again, not really worrying about like, all right, if nobody buys the art, I'm at least getting the word out. And I had reader copies of both Kid Slapshot and Happy Astronaut, and had people kind of flip through them. A couple people are pretty interested, kind of looking at them. I think one person took a picture of the cover. I know the Kid Slapshot one, and I told him like, yeah, the guys that make these books are on this drawing show. And I'm like, everything else here on the table is stuff that I do, which you can see on the show as well. But once again, my whole mindset going into it was just the fact that I get to promote those things. So if I sold one thing or 50 things, that I really wasn't too concerned about that. Mostly because, once again, I just had really no dream or passion of doing it this way. I've always what it says on the website is that I've always had the passion for creating since childhood, but whether that be filmmaking or drawing, but I've just always done it for fun. And everything that I've drawn, everything that was at that table, pictures will be filtered in here somewhere in this video. All of that stuff was for fun. There's been nothing that's been a challenge, nothing that I had to do as a job, nothing was frustrated. It was just basically showing off the last couple of years, which was fueled by with COVID hitting and Art Baltazar doing his drawing shows almost every day, several times a week, and me just picking up the pencil again. And it actually started in late 2019 when I started physically drawing. So it actually had the COVID lockdown and all of his shows and everything just helped fuel the fire a little more. But it was already, because it would have been at the shop when I would start showing off like drawings, being like, oh, hey, look, I drew an Archie and
Yeah.
I drew a Sabrina. And it was fun to kind of, I don't even know why I started doing that again. But now, a couple years later, now it's kind of, now there's copies of it and, original sketches. And I'm sitting there, hawking my wares, as he said.
And it's funny because I recently did a re-listen to all the episodes of Under the Cowl, which another podcast that's been on kind of a long-term hiatus right now. Another podcast that we did, also some YouTube stuff under And it's really pre Crimson Cowl Media, but now it's kind of under that umbrella. But I was going back and listening to those, and I listened to the really early episodes of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club. And it's funny because as we're listening to that, there are things where you are starting to get into doing the art. And it was, I'm going, wow, I kind of forgotten, that it was, this was this far back now, when we still had the location on Barton Avenue, and you were doing that, and you're showing, hey, I drew this and whatever, and it was just for fun, but you were kind of getting into it at that point. And I kind of was like, oh wow, you've been into it a lot more recently, but you were getting into it, you were picking it up even at that point. So it was kind of interesting to listen back on that and go, oh yeah.
Yeah, and so going into the actual con, I think we kind of covered our origins as much as we could in a short amount of time. But going into the con, I was so hyped up. After seeing all the tables over the years, I knew exactly, kind of what to have and how to make sure there's prices on things and signage, and it was fun just getting things prepped. I knew ahead of time to do the month of July to get all my prints in order. I didn't want to have to worry about August and then waiting on the shipping and making all the changes. So I stuck to that schedule where I'm like, July is all about just prepping the digital art that I've been doing through Procreate, and going ahead and making prints of those. While I'm talking about it, I do have a couple examples. So that included the Into the Gucci verse that I talked about earlier from the Oh Yeah Comics characters. Then got permission from I don't have the Kid Slapshot one nearby. But Happy Astronaut, which I drew on Cartoonist by Night. So I got permission from Matt Fife and Matt Rogers, like, hey, should I make a print of this? And of course they said yes. And of course they reserved a copy of it. And then I had my own thing with a character that I made, co-created in some old short films, not the giraffe, but the little girl there. So I had a couple there and a Kid Slapshot one, which I'll throw in the image right here because it's buried in the box at the moment. So I had my prints. I got all that stuff taken care of in July. Starting in I think maybe May, I started doing sketch cards. So over the years, I had been really attracted to a lot of the artists' tables and people doing little sketch cards, most being like sporting trading card size, sometimes a little bigger, 4x6s, whatever the size. And so I started, I'm like, I do a lot of digital media. That's where I prefer the digital drawing. And then I started to be like, I should really start, keeping the muscles going for physical art as well. And I figured working on the small little canvas was the way to do it. Now there are some artists that would tell me, being like, isn't that harder starting with drawing so small and everything? And I didn't really think about that. I was just thinking of size, not the difficulty of the level of detail and things like that. I was mostly thinking like, hey, if I only have a canvas this big, and I don't have to draw that much. Not really thinking, oh, I have to draw it really small and really carefully, but it was very natural to me. So I had a binder of original sketch cards that started with a bunch of the Muppets. I'll probably put up better images on here because I took pictures of all of these, I believe, in better format. So yeah, I started doing that, and then starting in the month of August, I started doing the Archie Art Challenge. That was mostly on Instagram, and some of the missing spots, thankfully, are ones that have been purchased. And so over the last couple months, mostly through summer, I've just been drawing the heck out of sketch cards. And I'm like, oh, by the time we get to Mighty Con, yeah, I've got my prints, but now out of nowhere, I'll probably have 40 to 50, almost 60 original sketch cards. So I'm like, I'll throw those on the table too. And yeah, so that the whole thing kind of started building. As it was getting closer, I kept thinking of more things to add, which I'll show off too. But I'll kick it over to your portion again, talking about going into the con, and maybe if you want to talk about your drawing prep and kind of getting into that mode.
So unfortunately, I didn't have as much time to do the amount of art that I wanted going into it. So I concentrated, and we do have scheduled time. Uh, we, along with Kerby, do our drawing club, if you will, every other weekend. So I'm like, if nothing else, I'll use that time to do stuff specifically for the con. And talking to you, you had various ideas. I have some of the trading card size ones, and I'll go into that a little bit more because I didn't use them as I was coming up with something that I wanted to do. I came up with an idea that I thought would be better for somebody else. But I did more like the 4x6s, and I started off on actual 4x6. I was just trying to look because I know I still have a couple of those in here. But I started off with like actual 4x6 cards and doing art on those. I still have to redo the Shark Knight to go with the Clownfish of Crime, as requested by Kerby. But I started doing those, and then we were discussing how some of the artists will do like these kind of quick sketches on like construction paper and whatever. And I started kind of playing around with that. But what happened with those is that I have a real hard time just doing quick sketches. And my quick sketches turned into very detailed, quicker than a normal, like, if I was doing some fine art. But they were more than just the quick sketches that I had intended to do on the construction paper. So that's kind of what I started doing these, and I'm like, okay, well, it's not quite what they were. Actually, some of them turned out really well, really detailed. So I'm like, and I was having fun doing them. Was the thing. Is like I'd come up with an idea and I'd go, hey, that would look really good on green, or hey, that would look really good on yellow, or whatever it was. And I would just do it. Most of them have no other color besides that. They're just I penciled them, and then I went over and I inked them. And there's a few that I added a little bit of color. But for the most part, that wasn't the case. So one example would be Cyclops there. I did add a little color to just the visor. But yeah, I did a bunch of those, and then I just displayed them in this book. I had them laying on the table there, and I figured people could just flip through them and see what they might like, what they might be interested in, if something jumps out at them. I've noticed that people wouldn't just on their own start flipping through. So I would come through, periodically, and I'd flip a page so that if somebody was looking, then they'd see that, oh, there's more to it than just that picture. Maybe I had somebody walking by that wasn't a Marvel fan, so later I'd switch it, and you'd have Hellboy on there or something like that. There's somebody dressed up like Captain Kirk. He ended up not even walking by, but like I flipped it back to the first page right away in anticipation to go, hey, I get some Star Trek stuff here. But I did those, and that was a lot of fun. And I did manage to sell a few of those. But I ended up
did sell one of them, I know, to me.
Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah, and that's when I'll know that I'm really doing good, is when there's more people that I don't know buying them, not because they're like, hey, I know this guy, I'm gonna support him, I'm gonna buy some of his art. Not that those people didn't find stuff that they actually liked and wanted, but it's nice when you have people that come up and you don't know them, they don't know you, and they like your art and they want to give you money for that art. And I know that you know what that feels like,
Yes.
because you had your very first person, and correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I believe that was your very first person who was not friend, family, know
Yep.
them whatsoever, bought art, and you had more after that, but your very first one was at this convention.
Yeah, his name was Mike, and he bought a Harley Quinn, and I was just like, "All right." He looked at it, and then he looked at a couple more, and then he goes, "You know what?" He's like, "I think he did a double take on the Harley Quinn." He's like, "Yeah, I got to take that one because I kept going back to it." But yeah, that was it. Just being like, "Hey, we have a live one here," and I had asked him. Well, I told him like, "Hey, this is my first time as an artist at a convention. Do you mind if I take your photo, put it up on social media and stuff like that? If you want to hold the art?" And he was definitely for that. And I seen he has liked some of the pages because whenever I post some art, I think mostly on the Facebook side, I see his name pop up. Once again, a complete stranger who is now following what I've been posting, and that picture will be up here too. Because once again, I did get permission, and I had that from a couple other people too. But yeah, that experience of we saw family and friends kind of come through, some club members, things like that, and when I would kind of give them the whole like tour of my table, it said like, if there's any of the original sketches that you like, and the sketch card ones, the ones that could take me anywhere from like 30 to 40 minutes, if there's ones that you like, just let me know because I could always do another one, but I kind of want this physical inventory to be hopefully to attract some strangers. And so I had my cousin Andrea come up, and huge supporter along with my aunt Sue, and my cousin wanted the my Betty Barbie one that I did for day 2 of the Archie Art Challenge, and so I'm like, oh, I'll take a picture of it. I have other pictures of it, but I'm like, oh, I'll just draw you, like a similar one or something. And it was like 3 minutes later is when a stranger came up and bought that specific card. And I'm like, see, it worked. It worked. I wasn't just, it felt weird kind of going in being like, no, don't buy that. Don't buy that. Don't buy that. But, I tried, I'll have a different attitude for round 2 in Madison in December. But for this first one, just knowing that, hey, if a friend wants something, I can just do it at home on my own time, but these I'm just hoping to try to get some new people with get some new eyes on it. But like with the copies of the prints and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, I've got lots of copies, so feel free to do whatever. But yeah, it was very exciting to kind of get, ending up having like 3, 4, 5 people or so that started coming up and being like, yeah, I want that, I want that. I'm like, really? So yeah.
I had a similar thing, as I was doing some of my own art. I had people, my wife, there was a couple that she really wanted. I haven't told her who bought Hellboy because she wanted that one. And I did an Addams Family one that was a little bit different take on it. But she really wanted that one. I had a couple other people that really wanted that one, and I went, no, you know what? If any of them are going to sell, it's going to be that one. So that one I want to take to the con. And sure enough, I think that might have been the first one that actually I did sell too. I'm trying to remember for sure, but I think that was the first or the second one that sold. And that one I'm going to do the same thing, but that one I'm going to recreate and do it as a print, because I think that one will be a popular one that people will enjoy if I'm able to capture, what I had there. But yeah, so similar thing where I was like, if I still have it after the con, it's yours. But
Yeah.
I want to try and sell it because I really want to see if people are interested in this stuff, beyond my wife and my kids, and so so that's what I did. Now, speaking of kids, as you had your trading cards, I wanted to go back into this. I came up with a good idea for the trading cards, but it wasn't my idea. I mean, I thought it would just work good for the trading cards. My daughter Katie has for years, Anthony's witnessed this. She likes to the big whiteboard in our kitchen. She'll take and she draws these little these goofy little things on it, and she names them, and she'll she'll put like a specimen number, and then she just makes up some 6, 7, 10 digit long number or whatever, puts it on there. Tells you what their habitat is and what their diet is, and a little bit about them. And it's all funny stuff, like it'll be she'll make up some name, give it a specimen number, and tell you that it lives in Anthony's back pocket and its diet is pocket lint or whatever it is. And then the next creature will be Anthony's pocket lint. And and she'll do like that. So some of these are connected. And I'm like, that would be a great idea to do on these trading cards. So I gave her a pack of the blank trading cards, and she just she kind of like looked at some old ones that she did, and she just knocked out, like she did like a whole pack worth of those trading cards, which we now call the specimen. And so her specimen thing, she sold as many of those, or I sold as many of those for her as I sold of my art, so they were popular. But there again, you have to get people to look at them to understand what they are, because somebody walking by, I think a couple of people might have glanced down on it and thought, this is a relatively simple art thing on a little card, and what is it? But I would flip back and I'm like, what, this page of them looks a little bit more eye-catching. And then I wanted people to be able to see that there's stuff written on the back. And if you took a moment and you read any of these things, you would laugh, and you would probably go and look at some more of them. So that's what we did, is we sold her specimen trading cards. They're right alongside my stuff.
Yeah, one cool thing for the future one, like in front of the specimen cards, to have like a poster size and real elaborate specimen here, arrows pointing down, and like really kind of draw that attention. Like I said, there's a lot of things I learned about stuff going forward, and you were talking about that too, just on what to do, what not to do. And for something like that, it would be pretty fun, and like be fun to have like some lights shining on it, like specimen over here, everybody. We have specimen.
But there really is a trick to it when you go to any comic convention. There's this big room filled with people selling stuff. A lot of people are selling similar stuff.
Yeah.
And you got to find a way to market yours in a way that's quick, it's eye-catching. People see that, they notice, it draws them in, and then you get them looking at more stuff, because they have places to be, they have money to spend elsewhere and things in mind that they want, whatever. So you're trying to like get them caught and looking at your stuff, and hopefully interested in what you've got to sell. And that's kind of the game. It's what everybody's trying to do, is get those people to come over and buy their stuff.
Yeah, when starting the con, the first half of it, I was very excited just to be standing and just be ready to, attention and just engaging and everything like that. And that definitely did work. But getting through the con, and as one gets up in age, you're standing for a long time. Eventually, you're going to want to sit down. And going into the con, I didn't think I was at all going to be comfortable with drawing at the con. Whether it was, I wasn't going to be. I don't think I'm at a level to accept commissions and things like that. Nobody asked, so thankfully I didn't have to deal with that and be like, maybe just contact me when I'm a little bit better or something. But I got to a comfortable state where we both brought our art supplies and everything, what we do at our little drawing meetup clubs and stuff. And I did start drawing, and what I found was very comfortable is kind of still greeting people as they walked by, not ignoring them. But with me not standing there, just being like, all right, what do you guys want? I got something for you. I got something for you. Little Jimmy over there has got a Spider-Man, blah, blah, blah. Like I would kind of let them, I think they were easier to kind of come up and browse. And then I would kind of give the quick pitch, sit back down and start drawing. So it was still very welcoming, engaging. The head wasn't down the entire time. I wasn't missing people, but I also wasn't just a big like carnival barker and just like sitting there just trying to lure everybody in or anything like that. So I found a kind of a comfortable space that kind of allowed me to engage while also drawing and not standing on my feet the entire time. Um, and then the last tier of the stuff I had to offer, halfway through the Archie Art Challenge, I got to a specific drawing with my Betty as Kaylee from Firefly, which I did in a sketch card, but I had a blank Firefly cover that I had bought at the Fan Expo Chicago convention a couple weeks earlier. And while I've purchased blank sketch covers in the past, I've got, some commissions on them. I still have like a half a dozen ones that I've just piled up, just waiting for the right idea for a commission for somebody. Never did I ever imagine, even when I was drawing again more in 2019, that I would do one. So I'm like, well, I did my small sketch card. So this is my first one I ever did. I put that one on the table too. As you can see, I'm still holding it, so nobody bought it. But I don't think a lot of people really saw what it was or anything. But since the convention and since pre-ordering comics, I've been scooping up more blank sketch covers because I do intend, as my physical drawing is hopefully improving, that I could have a selection of those. Now, the one of the last minute items going into the con was inspired by two artists that I love, Art Baltazar and Franco. I put them as a pairing there for the sake of this conversation. And Eric Wolfgang, who I would know through the comic store and fandom and stuff like that. And over the years, Art and Franco and Scoot, all of these guys from Aya Comics would do these quick sketches on 4x6 cards, and doing them mostly for kids. Kids get free sketches, blah blah blah. And it all started with Art and all of them like a night before a con, and just seeing who could draw Batman the quickest, or the Flash, or Spider-Man. And they would just have just piles of drawings, being like, well, what do we do with these now? Some of these took like 10 seconds to draw. They're like, well, throw them on the table, put a dollar on them, and people loved them, and they would continue to do that. Prices would increase, as it would for anything in the economy. But Art would still do free sketches for kids. I'd be there, and a kid would be excited, and he would draw them, a quick, Teen Titan or something like that, Tiny Titan rather. And so I love the idea. I'm like, I don't think I was ever at a spot where I always wanted to be like, oh, I just want to whip up a quick sketch. So I took the inspiration. Actually, I'll show this here. So I do have a collection of art ones that I've purchased from him. Some Patrick the Wolf Boy, some Abraham Linkage in different poses. There's comics characters, some DC characters. So here's some examples of the ones that he would whip up just in his adorable little style there. And eventually he would draw me twice, both with the beard and and definitely without, but definitely with the beard. As you can see, it's pretty out of control there. So it was fun to like just always be around that and kind of see that happen. And then Eric Wolfgang, I started seeing his art online, and I've gotten purchased some, and I've gotten some commissions. But what I saw with his was him doing these on these colored papers and adding things, with like whiteout and things like that. And I just was really drawn to the style and just how awesome these look here. I love this one especially here, the Sweetums. And so I took the inspiration from Art Baltazar, Franco, and Scoot, the inspiration from Eric Wolfgang, and I'm like, you know what? I've had construction paper in my house for like 15 years that I've never done with. I used back in the filmmaking days when I'd make little props and signs and stuff like that. So I started cutting them up very loosey goosey into quarter sheets, and I tried drawing things as fast as I could. I would look at a quick picture. I wouldn't really spend the time I would on a sketch card. So I would, some of these are what Art would say would be hurting. So doing a foghorn leghorn, a pretty whacked out Tweety bird, got a Tasmanian devil there. And then I started doing some Flintstones and just going through, and I just started to find a groove. And then at the show, I did some Fraggles, some Fraggle Rocks, and just doing these quick, using the color inspiration from Eric Wolfgang, using the kind of the speed and precision that Art Baltazar does in his style. And just going through what I had left, and I definitely did sell some of these guys here, so there are a few missing from here. So I started doing those, and I would whip them up there, sometimes 5 minutes or something, and I just slapped $1 on them. I had all my information on the back on where to find me online and the websites and stuff. So that was one of the things, like the weeks leading into MightyCon, where I was racing to like try to like do as many of these I can, because it would be fun just to, in the spirit of my first con, in the spirit of Art Baltazar and his early days, I'm just like, yeah, I'll just do these dollar sketches too. So, and those have been fun. And then I've now transformed this into spending maybe 10 minutes on one and doing some more finer pieces, which you were witness to at our drawing club, and are not posted at this time yet. They're saved for October. So it's been fun just knowing the clock was running out, and the Mighty Con was coming up, and I'm just like, I just want to add even more stuff. I went from being like, hey, maybe I'll have a little bookmark and a little flyer to advertise these shows, to the point where I had an entirely full table, very organized, very, nothing was too cluttered. Everything had a space, everything was laid out, and it just felt pretty awesome to kind of just start the year just being like, all right, I'm going to start showing people my art for the first time publicly, to now I just have a whole table of it and be like, all right, who wants to see an Animaniac? Here's one. So yeah, that was my kind of journey on like basically everything that I kind of offered. And then going into our next convention, I have a whole pack of 4x6 cards, white cards, that I started spending more time on, and doing some black and white pencils and not getting too crazy on inks or colors. I know where my strengths and weaknesses are. My physical coloring isn't as great as my digital coloring, especially when you have more tools and stuff like that. So I'm starting to just basically take this time now just to keep on drawing and keep adding inventory as we continue on this little journey that we started. So
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. It's like maybe that's one of the reasons that I like doing it on the colored construction paper and just doing what would be just a black and white thing, but now you've put it on a color, or maybe added just a little bit of color. I mean, I feel like my coloring isn't there. And again, I can go on and I can digitally color and everything, and that's just fine. Or if I really take a lot of time, even with like colored pencils or something like that, then I'm fine. But if I'm doing something faster, doing something that's more of a sketch card or something like that, and I'm coloring it, it just looks like somebody hurried up and colored it. So that is kind of the nice thing about doing something a little bit different. But ultimately, I want to do both. And then I'm going to take, I have a number of pictures already, but I'm going to add to them and go through and go, okay, what would people want? And those will be the things that I'm going to go, okay, this is going to be a print.
yeah, and so yeah, I think that pretty much covers kind of everything that we've been, kind of what we offered at the table and things like that. The kind of the two final tiers that I kind of mentally structured for this Mighty Con special. One of them being bringing on some artist friends that I had supported over the years at Mighty Con, and they were, I felt it was awesome to see them come up to my table, because they knew I was going to be there, but I didn't tell them where I was, because we don't know where we are until we got there. And so it was cool to think like, well, they sought me out, and eventually they found me. So it was kind of cool to see that happen. So we're going to have some little drop-in interview hangout things to grab their opinions of their experience over the years, especially with this convention that they've done for a couple years now. But the last thing I kind of had in mind was kind of talking about just the idea of like, I was so excited. It was like Christmas morning, just that Friday night before, just being like, oh, tomorrow I'll get I'm an early riser anyway. So I was just ready to just like, to jump up at 3 a.m. and be like, all right, let's do this. And so getting everything ready and just getting all the supplies, having all the signs, getting everything, just being like, oh, this is happening. And hitting the road, meeting up with you, going down to Milwaukee, and getting excited to set up, finding out where we were, and then just kind of, even though we had plenty of time, I just felt like I was racing to get my table set up, out of excitement because I'm just like I have all this stuff and I'm just excited to kind of like take the pictures and just bathe in what was happening there, and all those pictures will be filtered in and out of this video here that people will see the setups, and so I was very excited to kind of jump into the hall, the early vendor setup, and just being among the other artists and everybody selling their stuff, and it felt cool to be like normally because I'm just waiting out in the line for a half hour, or if it's a Chicago one, I'm sometimes waiting 2 hours in line just because it's a huge Chicago, 75,000 people coming in, and so it felt kind of cool, like going in through the back entrance and grabbing a cart and just like, yep, I got my stuff here. I'm an artist now, or something, I guess. According to what I'm selling here, I guess I'm an artist, and so that whole excitement, being on that side of the table, meeting our fellow artist friends that were tabled next to us, and having art trades happen, and just I didn't have too much time to walk around. Mostly I was just excited to stay there. I just meet up with the people hopefully we'll see on the show a little bit later, but I was mostly excited just to be in that mode of like, well, I'm on the other side now, at least for this one convention, and now for at least two conventions. But
Yeah.
so yeah, your experience, like I said, you and Kurt have done the whole vendor thing, but I don't know if you can touch on that a little bit. I had a different experience just because I haven't been on that side of the table officially. But anything that you can kind of speak about yet, as far as just being there as Crimson Call Media and being there as an artist and the excitement that surrounded us.
Well, and again, that's the thing that was really different here is while there were some similarities, I was selling some of the old stuff, the Crimson Cowl comics and collectible stuff. This was the first time where instead of Crimson Cowl comics and collectibles, your local comic book store in West Bend, Wisconsin, it was this bigger Crimson Cowl Media. We're focusing. Yeah, we've got this stuff still to sell, but we're focusing on this other stuff. And so there was a part of me that was comfortable with it in having done this several times, and then there was the part of me that was still like, in some ways, this is my first time. And it was the first time being there with somebody other than Kurt, because we had, we were selling the same stuff together. We're a team and whatever. Here it's like, and full transparency, Crimson Call Media is, it's my stuff. My daughter's stuff was under there. But Crimson Call Comic Club, that is part of Crimson Call Media. Anthony Laatsch's artwork is Anthony Laatsch's artwork. That's not, we're there and we were doing this under this, the banner of Crimson Call Media. But your stuff is very much your stuff. It's not part of it. So I want to be clear about that. Not that, in some way, I'm taking credit for Anthony's work or whatever. And also this might not come across to everybody too. Cartoonist by night. Also, as much as I wish that it were, it's also not a Crimson Call Media thing. It's we have this relationship, but it is its own thing. So we will continue to promote it. But yeah, just so that people, who don't know us well are aware, they're separate things. Yes, we'll promote them, and we will continue for as long as we do these together. We will continue to do things that it might continue to be under the Crimson Call Media thing, but there are going to be things there that aren't actually ours. The Keen Spot comics, they're not ours. As much as I wish they were, they're not.
They're not
so
mine.
just so people are aware, and I never want there to be that kind of confusion there. But part of Crimson Call Media, we were set up to help. It was initially a company set up to help my daughter do her novels and now her trading cards. It was set up to help my son do his comics and some game stuff that he is working on. It's set up to potentially help my other son do some video gaming stuff that he does on his own. And of course my own comics and my films and the podcasts and those things. That's what it was set up for. It was set up to help these people. So I look at it as an extension. It's not ours, but part of our mission is to help promote, do those things for our friends and our affiliates. So that's what we'll continue to do.
And I've told you in person, and I've talked about, with you inviting me into this thing, maybe 2024, I maybe would have been in the headset of being like, hey, maybe I should, try one of these tables sometime. But not at all would I have ever dreamed that until I was given that invite to advertise the club and the Cartoonist by Night show, and then that just turned into something bigger. So obviously, I've told you in person, and I'll tell you through Zoom as well, about how much I appreciated kind of being included in that. Because if my name was just on there, alongside all the other people there, it doesn't mean anything. Like, Crimson Cowl Media is a bigger entity, and I'm part of that. And then it made sense, to kind of be under that banner, and I'm very comfortable being under that banner while also offering other stuff as well. So to me, they go hand in hand. When I am talking about Crimson Cowl Comic Club and hosting that show, I'm often, making my plugs for cartoonists when they need it. And then when I'm on Cartoonist by Night, I at least mention Crimson Cowl almost every episode, if not every. Plus, it's in the credits and stuff. So everything's basically kind of cross promoted as if it is. But it kind of feels good to kind of have the two very different types of shows, while I kind of bring the same kind of energy and stories to both of them. But it feels good to be like, all right, talking about specifically the comics I've read of other people's work and interviewing creators that we've been doing in 2023 a lot more. But then on Cartoonist by Night, it's a whole different beast where I just kind of, relax my shoulders a little more. And while it's a whole different, experience with showing people of me drawing, quote unquote live, is a whole weird thing that it takes a little bit to be comfortable with. But it is a fun kind of a challenge, and both shows kind of have that same energy and mission while being very different experiences at the same time.
Yeah, and I get that you were kind of talking about your level of comfort drawing at the con while we were sitting there, and I don't typically draw in front of people, even even at our bi-weekly club that we have for drawing. I sometimes, as we're talking, I get very quiet because now I'm concentrating. I'm in that world.
Yeah.
So I was concerned about doing that. And so I was able to kind of do both. But just as an example, I really feel as though my art, while I could say, as a quick sketch or whatever, these would be fine. These that I did there, those are examples of ones that I did there that I felt like, okay, I would be very unhappy with my work if I were sitting at home and doing that.
Sure.
But to be doing that there while all this stuff is going on and whatever, but that's fine for what it is. Not the same quality as if I was just putting, all of my effort and concentration into doing that work.
I've got the same thing with Cartoonist by Night, and anytime you would see, we have 13 videos. One of those might be a trailer. So I think we have a dozen episodes of our actual drawing. And while you would see me digitally ink things, because I would do the pencils ahead of time because I was more comfortable, I'm like, nobody needs to see me trying to figure out how to do something. I'd much rather people see me do the inking. I wouldn't even really get to the coloring. And I would finish an episode and recording, and I would find out the next day I would go back to that file and delete those layers and start from scratch and just do it in my own headspace. Because I just still, while I'm talking and hosting and looking at what they're doing, I'm not doing it kind of like what you were saying there, where you just don't feel in that comfortable space. And some of the later episodes of Cartoonist by Night, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, oh, this is the final thing. I'm like, I'm not going to redo this tomorrow. I'm like, and now I'm starting to do the physical art thanks to the Archie Art Challenge. And I have a separate video for that and stuff too on the Cartoonist channel. Um, Doing that has made me more comfortable, and now we haven't seen the episode yet, or maybe we have, but now I'm starting to do that where I'm like, hey, I think I might just do physical drawings on the show now. And I've found out that I'm like, oh, I haven't even done digital drawings in quite some time, because I'm having so much fun just doing these little pieces, original pieces. And not saying I'm, abandoning one, but it feels good to kind of strengthen the physical art, which obviously we all started with, because you and I didn't have iPads when we grew up, so but we just had etch a sketches and
I still don't.
and but yeah, I think that kind of wraps up that segment. The last thing I want to talk about, it was cool seeing the friends and family pop by. A couple of people I knew that were going to be there, like my Aunt Sue and cousin Andrea, they're from relativeart.com, by the way. Awesome photography work and stuff like that. So check out relativeart.com. And then club members Kerby and Shelly showing up, which they've been venturing to these cons for the last couple of years. And people that we expected to see. It was cool to see them in person, and especially to hand out the bookmarks in person, because I had just gotten them a couple days prior. And but then there was a few surprises, especially for me, with some friends coming by, some people that I never would have expected to be at a Comic Con ever. And it was just kind of cool to put up my head and see, like, oh, hey, here's somebody that I was a surprise. And then once again, shout out to the people, the strangers that thought that what I presented art wise, both because I sold a tiny bit of everything that I had to offer, as far as the prints, the dollar construction sketches, and the sketch cards. It was cool to see a little bit of everything purchased, and for people to be like, yes, here's some money that I made, I want that piece of paper that you drew something on, being like, okay. And it felt weird kind of letting some things go, especially that Betty Barbie one, which is probably one of my stronger ones of that set. But looking at her expression and the photo and everything like that, I think it went to a great home. So it just the whole idea. And there was a couple I wanted to keep the Animaniacs one, and nobody bought those. So I'm like, ooh, I had a second chance at keeping my own art. So.
Yeah, and that's something that I was always worried about with doing this too. Was I tend to become attached to the things that I've created. So that was something like, as I'm drawing this stuff, and I'm like, am I going to be able to sell this? I was picturing myself like, like taking the money and kind of handing off the artwork and being like, and having that struggle there. But no, I ended up being okay with it, and I've taken pictures of the stuff that I've done, so at least I can look back on it and go, hey, I did that. But it was actually it was a good experience to actually be out there and have somebody wanting to pay for your artwork, because I haven't sold artwork of my own since I was in like high school. So so yeah, it was definitely a new experience, and a good experience that made me want to just like continue and do this. And I'm really excited for the next one, because I anticipate having all these other things. But at the same time, it's like, I know we're out till the beginning of December, so we've got some time, but I know how fast that time can slip away. So now it's like, okay, I gotta get the stuff done. I gotta crank out some more stuff. I gotta get some prints made. And I've got to do all this stuff so that Madison can be an even more successful, hopefully, one than Milwaukee was.
And we're talking about Kerby and Shelley. So this will be a part that we're going to throw Kerby into the video, talking about being on the consumer for this convention. And he has his own show with Under the Cowl of MS, and he has done the Mighty Con videos and showing off stuff. But we're going to bring him into this one as well because he's part of our comic club and everything like that. So this will be the moment we will cut over to Kerby. All right, here we are with Kerby from the Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast, as well as Under the Cowl of MS. Welcome, Kerby. How's it going?
Wonderful. Yourself?
Pretty great. This feels weird because we don't talk like this on the Crimson Cowl Comic Club, but you are a guest within your own comic club spin-off video special. But here we are. What David and I had covered going through our experience at Mighty Con, but we had the benefit of having a most news channels will have the man on the street segments. We had a man on the con floor, man and a woman, as yourself and your wife basically went through the artist alley of Mighty Con as you have for the last handful of years. So what we want to do is kind of see how the vibe was going, what you thought of this basically Mighty Con fall 2023 in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I love Milwaukee Mighty Con. It's a wonderful con to go to if you're in the Wisconsin area, because it works out really nice in Wisconsin where we have things set up like the Brewer Stadium is in the city, but yet it's outside the city. Same with where they have Milwaukee Mighty Con. They hold it at the state fairgrounds, easy to get to. You're on the outskirts of the city, but yet you're right there where you need to be with everything. You don't have to fight to get in there. It's nice and simple right off the highway. And it's set up nicely in a building, comfortable parking, all that. But this was the first one in a while that they did not have a special guest involved in this one. The last couple, they had certain Power Rangers that made appearances and did signings. So I think that might have been why this time it was a little bit lighter on the attendance, because it was very easy to move around and get through the aisles, whereas the past couple were a little shoulder to shoulder fighting to get through things. And then when you get to where the Power Ranger was or whatever, there was a huge line of people, and then all the cosplayers all kind of piled up all in that one corner. But I think they missed out big time this year because of the writers' strike, and they do have another con coming up in the near future, and I think they could really take advantage of it. But a certain person that I think they could get for a very reasonable price would be Ron Perlman. He's been on some stuff lately that I've been following. And the way he's talked, he's just bored out of his mind. He'd love to come and do things like this. He likes this area and stuff. So I think that would be a benefit, because he did, on the last podcast I listened to him, did do some talks about some things with the Hellboy franchise, which I was surprised to hear him bring up about the third movie and stuff like that. So, I think that helps benefit them a little bit more if they get someone like that in there. But I go mainly to see who's there and look for local or someone that's relatively Midwestern creative teams or people, artists, writers, stuff like that come up with like different comic books and local comics and all that. But this last one was mostly creators out of the Illinois area, Chicagoland, which was surprising that I think I only ran into one team that was from Wisconsin this time. So I'd like to see a few more creators locally pop up. But yeah, there were some wonderful fun ones that I met this time. Ran into some guys that had new guys at the table that I ran into from some Crimson Cowl Media Comic Club type thing.
Whatever they are.
Well, to see if we can book them for get an interview from them for this special, yeah.
Yeah, it's they had some fun artwork and some fun goodies with them. Their table, but yeah, it's nicely laid out. spread out where you can get around comfortably. They have everything you need as far as vending area, all that stuff. They do a nice little cosplay thing in the afternoon that you can join up with. And it's just, yeah, I like the way they do things. You get a lot of trading cards, action figures, comic distributors and stuff. And you don't have the big artist alley signing up area unless you get someone special that shows up. But there are a lot of fun people that we've got to know over the years, like Jeff Balke, that's worked for Disney and stuff, that make appearances there pretty much at every one of the cons. And so there's plenty for you to do, plenty of fun, and lots of great people to see, and everybody's friendly. I've never had any issues with anybody, even when you're the one a few times back where it was a little hot and sweaty in the middle of summer, and you're sitting there squashed between people trying to get through those comic boxes and stuff. Everybody's pretty nice to each other, and they'll make you comfortable and work with you and move around and stuff. You don't have to fight for things. I think the only box of comics you really have to fight for is if you prepay, you get a free comic, and they have like 2-3 boxes by the door where you come in, and everybody piles in to try and get those, and everybody wants to go through every single one of them before they pick their one free comic. But yeah, other than that, it's not a madhouse, which some other ones that I've been to have been, and I really enjoy it. It's the one that I will always go back to. I know they're going to be doing a Madison one next, which just so happens to be the day I will be picking my wife up from the Columbus Amtrak, which is just about 20 minutes from Madison. So I'm thinking if it's a nice day out, I'm going to try and head up there early, try and stop at the con for a couple hours, and then pick her up at the train station if I remember on the way home. So,
If you remember, yes, that's the key right there. If you remember to pick her up on the way home.
depends
Now,
how much I spend.
I'll recommend to bring those bookmarks with you, because that'll be information that can help you find Crimson Call Media at Madison Mighty Con. So yeah, that's stop by their booth. I heard they have some stuff there. They're gonna have some new art.
Cool.
But yeah, so yeah, I would agree with a lot with what you said, talking about like the size of the con, and it's just like it still has a spirit of like an old school con. Like even when they do have like a Power Ranger or somebody from Star Wars that was in like a background scene or something, like while you do have that media draw, it still keeps it, pretty kind of low level and pretty just kind of focusing on the art and the comics and stuff like that. It's a great afternoon. It's a great day to spend down there.
Yeah, and some of the cosplayers are really fun. It's like I didn't get to talk to him because he was busy entertaining a child and his father and talking to some other people, so I didn't bother talking to him. But I'm pretty sure I recognized him from my a group that I follow of cosplayers that go around to all the local hospitals and stuff. But he was dressed up as Spider-Man with a lightsaber, and he was flipping around, doing all kinds of fun moves, entertaining everybody.
He was trying really hard to have a duel.
Yeah.
With I believe a Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah, that's what I was
who wanted nothing to do with it.
yeah.
I grabbed a photo of that, so I'm going to put that in editing right here, because that was right in front of our booth, and I was able to get that in one shot with Spider-Man and Qui-Gon kind of squaring off. So
Yeah, I got to catch that too. So, if you're gonna cosplay, you gotta play. I mean, that's all part of the word. Play is in the word.
Yeah, and it maybe the guy was just really worried, like he saw that Spider-Man kind of jumping around and really into it, and might have thought, I just he already got like beat down by Darth Maul. He probably just didn't want to take another beating, by Spider-Man of all people.
exactly.
Yeah. And he was a little excited. Spidey was. He was jumping all over.
And to kind of talk about us a little bit, what was the experience of kind of going up and all of a sudden, like, like we didn't know where we were until we got there and just looking for, and David found it right away, being like, "Oh, hey, there's my name." And so we didn't really have the means to advertise to people, and it's small enough that eventually you'll just find it. But uh any reaction to just kind of coming up and just kind of seeing what was on display from Crimson Call Media, as far as just stumbling across and being like, "Hey, I know these guys." Anything you can add on to that at all?
I was really surprised. I did not expect as much variety as I seen when I got to the table. There were posters, there were cards, there were sketches, there were comics. Just a nice, vast variety of goodies that you could choose from. So yeah, I picked up a few fun things myself, me and the wife. But sadly, you'll have to check out my video off Under the Cowl of MS, because most art stuff is all already put into the art books and stuff, and without the wife digging them up, I had her rearrange everything, so they got mixed in with the past couple cons worth. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's a nice variety of fun things, and even from other people that weren't even part of their booth, they had some stuff. So
Oh yeah, yeah. And
Yeah, right.
I'm just thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, who was that?
Which booth are we talking about?
The specimen, I'm assuming, is.
yep.
Yep, yep.
Uh,
But yeah, and once we close this out, we'll circle back to plugging Under the Call of MS for anyone to check it out, and for your extensive recap of Mighty Con as well. But we thought it would be good to kind of have, throw you in here. We got a couple of the artists coming up as well, but it was good to have a man on the con floor. As we get into that plug, I don't know if there was anything else to throw out there from either Kerby or David to chime in on before we kind of just wrap up this little mini segment here.
No, it was a lot of fun. And like I said, I'm looking forward to everyone that they come up with. It's the perfect place to go. You don't have to fight to get there. You don't have to go and park in the seventh level of a parking structure and go down an elevator and go walk across the street to a big arena or something like that, where you have to if you go down into the middle of the city. But yeah, it's just so nice and pleasant to go there. And when you leave, you're right by Mamma Mia's Pizza if you want to pick that up for dinner. You're right down the road from a variety of other areas that you can go shopping and go do things. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I plan on going to everyone I can.
yeah, see, now I've never had the pleasure of, going into one of the Mighty Cons, like the regular visitors, and because I've only been to these as a vendor, where it's loading in the back and everything. So for me, I haven't experienced that. It was a little different for Anthony because this is the first time going in as a vendor versus going in through the front doors. With all the people with their tickets, and whether it's the advanced tickets or just buying at the door or whatever.
Yeah, it felt weird not buying admission for this convention, just being like, "Oh shoot, I don't have my ticket." But
And usually, if they have it in fall, you do have to watch out. It might take a little while to get in to the event if they're also doing cream puffs. The one time they had it, they're selling cream puffs, and when they sell cream puffs at State Fairgrounds, you don't want to miss out. They're awesome. They have multiple flavors now, but yeah, it's crazy how many people come down for that. So,
we'll look forward to your the cream puff video recap on your channel as well. We'll capture that. Subscribe. Talking about your channel for a final little plug here as we wrap up this segment. You run Under the Cowl of MS, so if there's anybody new to this coming in for a Mighty Con review, they don't know anything about the Crimson Cowl Comic Club, they don't know anything about Under the Cowl, kind of give some of our possible new followers a little taste on what Under the Cowl of MS is.
I do comic book previews, reviews, unpacking, uh, toy openings, uh, different type of drawing videos, store reviews, con reviews. Anytime I get something special, I like to show it off on there. then I also talk about my experiences with MS and being a dementia caretaker and stuff like that. But yeah, I'll talk wrestling, video games, anything I can come up with that interests me. I'll talk about it live or on audio. I do audio and video podcasts, been slacking on the audios because I'm having more fun with the videos. But yeah, there's a little bit of everything. And if I ain't doing something that you want me to do, just tell me and I'll make a video on it.
I'll
I
send you a
even
list.
I even did a video. I had 2 spiders that were in a corner of my house, and I did a 5-minute video about that. Then I got an update coming on that to show you what happened with the outcome of the 2 spiders getting together.
And if you look closely on that video, you might be able to see some Jedi robes and lightsabers too. I think that's, is a spinoff from what happened at Mighty Con in Milwaukee. But yes, so check out Under the Call of MS wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on your social media platforms, and especially on YouTube where all the action is these days. So yeah, thanks for coming on. We'll see you at the Crimson Cowl Comic Club next. But yeah, it was fun just to have you on here, get the perspective from the man on the con floor.
And on the floor.
And now let's return back to past David and Anthony. And there you have it. And then the other ones we're going to do, some of the artist friends that I had mentioned at the time of this recording, we're not sure due to scheduling on who's going to show up. So it's going to be a mystery to all of us. But this will be the moment we'll kick it over to our artist friends, people that have been doing this for the last handful of years, whether it's just a couple or maybe even over a decade. So let's jump over to them. All right, here we are for another creator interview from Mighty Con. We have Yasmeen and Darien. How's it going, everybody?
Hey,
Good.
So, going back into Mighty Con a couple years ago, I was just walking the aisle as a customer, as I normally do. And how I came across Yasmeen's art is because I saw this beautiful print. I saw some Grogu, I saw some Baby Groot, but just when you thought this was the best thing you could ever see, it got better because there was the reverse side. So I saw that and there was just absolutely no discussion being like, yep, I have to have both of these. And that's where it started. And I remember too that you were just, you were pretty giddy about it and you asked to like, hey, can I take your picture? And normally as the customer, I'm the one that's asking the artist that. So I'm like, oh, okay. And then I would later see that you threw it up on the Instagram and everything. So I'm like, oh, okay, I gotcha. So yes,
Exactly.
that is the origins. I talked about this on the Crimson Cowl Comic Club many a times. And it's often referenced whenever these characters are brought up. So it feels good to have you on our show in a way proper. So
no, it's great.
So what we're going to do here is basically have you let the audience know what you do as far as your art and basically pitch your brand, and then we'll jump into the discussion of Mighty Con.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Yasmeen, the artist behind Forged in Gold, and then this is Darien. He does all of our tech ops, like the techie stuff of everything that we do, basically.
like your website and event scouting and just the non-creative stuff.
It's still creative, of course, but yeah, basically all the art everyone sees is what I create. So, yeah, that's basically what I do, and I guess mostly I'm a digital artist that focuses on pop culture, the feminine figure, and a lot of fan art, but also original characters too.
Cool. And was Mighty Con, I know we had talked about this, but I guess you can either remind myself, let the audience know. Had you done any conventions prior to just Mighty Con in general?
Yeah, so I'm from Mexico. So I actually did a convention down there. That was the first one I ever did, and my grandparents were my helpers. So it's so special, like from where I started to where I am now. And then my first one in the United States was actually more of like a gallery night, which was meant to be more for like paintings.
That was like fine art.
We
Yeah.
didn't know. So there you are, this like high scale gallery event that the whole town came out to be, and then we're just there in the middle with our little table trying to sell what we do. So it was so random. And then from there we did jump to Mighty Con, and that was right when the world was shutting down.
Yeah.
So that was the very
Yeah.
first one we did in 2020. Yeah, it was February, and then everything shut down. And then from there we had a 2-year hiatus basically, and now we're back.
And yeah, so when I came across your stuff, I saw that, I was excited, and then I decided, like, well, hey, you're on the list again for the next Mighty Con. They've been doing like 2 a year for the Milwaukee location at least. And so that's when I'm like, well, I'm going to have to make another visit. And going up to your table, I was deciding if I was going to reintroduce myself, being, oh, hey, but you remembered me immediately. So that was a lot
Oh
of fun.
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
had some other examples of things that I picked up for the ongoing
Mhm.
years. So I'm just showing this for our audience here. And I love, and you remember too that I bought this Scarlet Witch because I'm like, well, I need it as a bookmark too. So, I just had to basically double dip. So, but so yeah, yours became a must stop location. And then going into this year, it was a little different for me because it was the first time that myself and David appeared at Mighty Con as artists. He's done the vending before. We
Mhm.
talked about that early on.
Yes.
But so it was exciting to have artists that I was excited to see actually show up at my table, which was kind of a crazy experience.
Yeah.
Talking about the current Mighty Con, do you have any thoughts on just kind of how you did overall? How was the vibe, everything compared to the last several times you set up there?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I also want to tie in that, of course, we remember you. Like, I remember the first time you bought the 2 babies, and then the following year, like, you surprised me, and then you were there. And so from there, it was kind of like, is he going to stop again? Is he going to be the first person to stop in again? So that's been kind of like a little Easter egg hunt in between us.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, we really appreciate you. We love that. And I would say out of all the Mighty Cons that we've done, this one was probably like the roughest one since before the pandemic shutdowns. For some reason, like it felt off. Like there just wasn't either as much of a crowd, or like a different crowd kind of came by this time, but it definitely felt a little less crowded than normal. I usually expect it to be a little more packed.
Mm-hmm.
So I will share that I felt like this year around it was, if or at least in the later half, because they always do twice a year in Milwaukee, the second half just felt a lot more rough.
And it was Labor Day weekend that weekend, I believe, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. So that could, played a little part. I didn't really have any, thing to judge on it. I was just excited to be there, to be on that side of the table. But
Yeah.
the one
Well,
thing,
it's the nature of the conventions too. I mean,
Mhm.
having done a number of them as a vendor, in as far as the Mighty Cons, I've done Milwaukee, I've done Madison, and each time it's a little bit different. The crowd is different. The first Milwaukee one that I did, it was it was slow. We actually did pretty terribly that first time, and a lot of people there were saying, yeah, this isn't as good as it normally is, and this and that. So it does happen. You get some cons
Mhm.
where it just doesn't go as well. We've also seen where some people think it went really well and other people didn't do as good, and that I think is just the specific crowd that was there.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
and
thought Labor Day weekend would have helped just because a lot of people end up having a longer weekend. They end up having a little more money to spend. So I think that's also why I kind of had like my hopes really high, and maybe I shouldn't have done that. But just based on the track record I've had at MightyCon, specifically Milwaukee, I just like really had my hopes up high, and it just felt a little more rougher than what we were used to, especially like since it seemed like it was going up since the shutdowns.
Yeah.
But I
and
totally get that too.
And throughout the years, whether it's Mighty Con specific or not, but as you go from table to table, city to city, state to state, I
Mhm.
assume there's something that you learn about how to improve just your table presentation. I mean, you definitely had a gorgeous layout this time around, and just seeing just
Thank you.
it's a lot different when you go to other setups, and it's cool when you see you get a little bit of the personality from the creator right there, just how it's decorated. So, is there anything that you kind of want to share just about how you've what you've learned from convention to convention and how you applied that? So,
Yeah, so it's an adventure every time. Like none of my table setups are ever the same.
No.
Every event is different because we're always provided either a more narrow table, a longer table, a shorter table. So it's definitely it's definitely been interesting. I think I finally have just like a general idea, I guess, of
Yeah.
what goes up where when I put up the tower, what goes up on my rotating carousel. Like now with the carousel, I think it's starting to get to a point where it's a little too crowded with the bookmarks and the charms. So we're starting to throw out some ideas of, maybe it should just be for charms and tassels, and the bookmark should just go somewhere completely different. So for me, it's just something that it just keeps changing as we go.
You're always trying to evolve it and switch it up, and just one sort of bigger thing that we're changing is like you used to have like the commissions across laid out on the table.
Yeah.
Now you've made out like a book that
Yes.
you can
I
flip
I did
through.
that.
So different
Yeah.
changes like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Because when we first started out in Con in Green Bay, one side of the towers was fan art, one side of the towers was like commissions. And then we realized that it was just too bulky. Like there was just too much to look at up there that you couldn't even like buy. So like all the commissions were examples and they're great examples to look at, but it was just taking up a lot of space. So now I decided to buy a mini binder, and I've had it for years, and now I finally was like, okay, I should just fill it up with all the commissions, and it looks great.
Oh yeah.
cool, cool. Yeah, and that was one of the things I was thinking about, where having seen convention tables and kind of knowing what to have, what not to have, and just make sure I had all my bases covered. And I think our layout was pretty good. I was pretty satisfied with it.
Yeah.
But that is interesting, kind of thinking about how you change it up every time and just kind of keep accommodating. Whereas I'm thinking like, oh, I got it right the first time, so I'm just going to keep doing that. But I do. That's going to make me, think about it a little more for the next one, because we are going to be at Mighty Con in Madison in December as well. So we'll have the same double table set up there. But yeah, I'm going to keep that in mind about just still trying to keep it different at the same time. So
Well, there's always
Yeah,
some
and I
things
mean,
that aren't in your
oh,
control
go
too.
ahead.
Like you were saying, like table sizes. I was kind of telling Anthony ahead of time. I knew some of the times in Milwaukee they had these longer but more narrow tables there
Mm-hmm.
than your typical tables. If you're set
Mm-hmm.
up on a corner versus inside, or something like that, a lot of those things can really affect like how you
Mm-hmm.
set up and how people see you. So
Mm-hmm.
those are things that like you don't necessarily know until you're there how you can do that. But the best you can hope for is like
Yep.
have some systems in place, and then once you get there, go, okay, this one goes here, this one goes there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And actually you bring up a really good point, because I think in February where you guys saw us was on one of the ends. And then this time we were on an end, but inside of the aisle versus the edge of the aisle.
Yeah.
And I think that may have hurt us because I was in front of like a reseller, and then next to me was, I think it was like books and prints, which we've sat next to an author before and that's worked out great. But I think it was the fact that we were just like in the aisle, and I think a lot of people just end up walking through the aisle versus like on the edge you kind of are going around, so you might even have a little more time to be looking at that table. And I think maybe that could actually be something I didn't even think about, that I think I just realized could be helpful or harmful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you pretty much just have to go with the flow, and you don't know. Like we didn't have a map, so we didn't know where we were. So once we found the
Right.
table, it's like, all right, this is where we are, and let's just go and set up and figure it out. So
Mm-hmm.
as we wrap up this little portion here, I didn't have any prepared questions. I felt this was going to be a pretty natural discussion. So one thing I just thought of um, is there any place in the world that you would like to set up a table at whatever convention? If you just happen to globe trot and you found a spot, is there any kind of dream location for a convention sometime?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the big cons, right? Like a C2E2 or a San Diego Comic Con would just be like a dream. And it would be so cool if like we could look back in a few years at this podcast and be like,
Yep.
oh my God, remember when that was our dream and now we're here? That would be cool. That would be cool.
Yeah, the staff made me get into a line. I had to wait 45 minutes and get a golden ticket just to get to Yasmeen's table. And I'm like, what is going on here? But hey, I'll follow the rules if that's how it is.
And the gold ticket would be so fitting. So you just gave us an idea we'll have to give you credit for.
Yeah, there we go. All right. So maybe instead of 45 minutes, it's just a half-hour wait for me then. So
There you go.
Get fast passes for your table.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
I like that. So yeah, what we can do now is if you want to let our audience know just basically where to find you online and just kind of anything that's going on, and then maybe a couple of your upcoming appearances if you know that offhand.
Yeah. And
I'm intrigued.
Yep.
I got a surprise for you guys. So while he
Uh-oh.
goes and runs and does all that, you guys can find me at the next con will be Mighty Con, Indiana. I'm super excited. This will be a new state that we do an event at. I've done events in Minnesota and mainly Wisconsin, but this will be the first show in Indiana. I'm super excited. Oh, yes, we've done a show in Illinois. And on the little seat.
The Indiana
Anyways.
one is coming up in October, beginning of October, I think. Pretty early.
Yes, October 7th. So my table is going to be all spooked out. I've got little Halloween decorations to put up all over the place. So it'll be interesting. So yeah, even though I might not see you guys at that event, I'll definitely have footage on my TikTok, which is another place where you'll be able to find me. And I'm hoping to make longer versions of those videos on YouTube, but nothing official just yet. So the only other place people can find me is on Instagram by the same name, Forged in Gold. And I have a surprise to show you guys.
Uh-oh.
A little sneak peek, if you will.
Okay. Let me take a look here.
So, and of course, Anthony will have something special for you behind the scenes. We'll talk about it later or at the next event we see you at. But
Sure.
I wanted to show you guys. Anthony brought up the little babies I had worked on before, and I did let him know I was working on a new version.
Mm-hmm.
So I have that ready to show you.
Cool.
Working day and night on this.
Yes, it was supposed to be, as I'm looking at the calendar, it was supposed to be finished by September 10th, and I didn't finish it till last night. So I've been overtime on this. And this is a new version of
Oh, that is beautiful.
Grogu and Groot. So yes, there's more detailing and it's got a galactic background.
Yeah, the background's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this is the one for Groot and Grogu.
Oh, yeah. I think I told you
Yeah.
too. Well, I guess I'll probably have to buy those too. I don't even need to just put me on the list. So.
Yeah, that's
Well, we'll
pretty
have
awesome.
a little surprise for you.
Okay.
Sorry, what was that, David?
So that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I like that.
Thank you.
The background in there really makes it like pop and everything. It looks really cool.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I definitely wanted it to be just like levels above what I had already created, because that I just want to show like how much I'm progressing as an artist. But also the only reason why I had to push myself to do this was because the initial concept was that I would make a double-sided charm of this design, and when we went to put the files together, they didn't match. And at that point I just felt, okay, if I'm gonna have to mess around with it, I might as well start from the ground up and just make it miles better, and just have it be like a testament of how far I've gotten. So now I'll actually have these acrylics, and they'll even be better than I originally imagined.
That idea too of going revamping something. I look at some of my art that I've done, and like I'm very comfortable with posting it, even though I know I've progressed, in just every month, every year that goes by. But I haven't really thought about being like, you know what, let me spruce that up. But yeah, I kind of like that approach to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that is going to do it then for this little portion. We have a couple other interviews to get to, but I want to thank Yasmeen and Darien for coming on the Crimson Cowl Comic Club special Mighty Con spin-off video. So yeah, it was a blast to have you, and thank you.
And look
Yeah,
forward
and
to
it was
seeing you
great
at
to
the
be here.
upcoming cons.
Yes,
Yes, of course.
definitely. We'll be on the lookout for you guys too, since now we'll be little neighbors at Milwaukee at least, and hopefully at even more events after that. And we'll definitely keep you guys in the loop of where we'll be at next and all that kind of stuff.
Yep, always posting on TikTok where we're going up next, and then also on your website, forgedingold.com. We always have a banner at the top that says where our next event is going to be and when. So, yeah.
All right.
Great.
Good. Cut it back to Anthony for the other part of this interview. All right, we are now welcoming artist, illustrator, also a fun guy, Greg Schmidt. How's it going?
Hi, it's going great. Thanks for having me. So, as Anthony said, I'm Greg Schmidt of Schmidt and Giggle, the sole illustrator and operator of that franchise. So, but yeah, otherwise I've been kind of drawing a lot of like cartoon, heavy shape driven, thick line weight, like think classic cartoon work, mixed with pop culture, like characters and comic book characters, just kind of mashed together. And that's what I produce. So, in a nutshell.
Excellent. And the reason why he's here, along with our guests that we've had on before, is that when I'm shopping at Milwaukee Mighty Con, I happen to stumble upon these artists, ones that I would keep in my brain that I would go through and revisit again. I would also see Greg Schmidt at C2E2 as well, so that was a pleasant surprise. And so I kind of wanted to kick it off with me finding your art, and the first thing that really drew me to you was seeing some of my favorite characters of Kitty Pryde and Lockheed with the Sentinel here. So I bought this awesome poster print here, and then I saw something from you that would kick off a craze. Now, the original art sketch cards is something that I'm sure has been around for quite some time, but myself going into Mighty Con, for this Mighty Con that I met you at, I never really looked into a lot of original art. I was more buying prints and the celeb photo ops, back issue diving, and things like that. But post COVID, during COVID, I would start getting commissions and just having more interest in original art. So when I'm shopping Mighty Con, anytime I could see anything like that, especially when they're kind of small little small commitment sketches, I would definitely dive on that. So I was looking for some Kamala Khan.
Oh,
Let me
yeah.
get
She's
there we
fun.
go. So that was one that I had you I believe, I'm trying to think if you did that one at the show or if you had
That one, I think so. A lot of those, like the history of why and how I got started with like the sketch cards in particular. I don't know how many years ago, but for local, so I'm based out of Madison, Wisconsin, and a local shop that has gone under since the pandemic. I used to do free comic book day at the shop, and as like an initiative to kind of raise money for Hero Initiative. I would do sketch cards on the fly, and then like I think it was like $10 donation, got you a sketch card of whatever you wanted. And while I was sitting there just sketching little like cards away all day, and kind of helping out with whatever I could, I had kind of a surplus left over one year, because I think I went into it like just, all right, I'm going to make a bunch of generic characters. That way I have it already done. I know people are going to get, your Spider-Man, your Hulk, so on and so forth. And I had a surplus after the show. And I was like, well, what do I do with this? I'm not going to wait around another year probably. So that's when the owner of that shop kind of suggested, why don't you just get a baseball like folder with like card sleeves and just start selling it at your table. I was like, good idea. So just started like doing it. And usually with like downtime, if I have like a few minutes, I'll just kind of sketch something out and ink it real quick. So kind of have my go-to characters that I keep on hand that I know people will pick up at shows. So
Oh yeah. And that's what, like, when I started noticing that, and they're very inexpensive, they're very fun. If you need to, collect something from a table, you want to get something, it's a nice little piece of original art. I also have a, creature from the Black
Oh,
Lagoon,
yeah.
which happened at this most recent Mighty Con that we'll be
Yeah.
talking about shortly. And then so that kind of kicked off a craze for me because I kept looking for that kind of stuff, and I've had my own binder of ones that I've purchased from people. Now I've been drawing them myself and just having like a lot of fun with that. Now the second part of our little meet and greet happened when I went back to where I was hanging out at Mighty Con, and that was behind the table of the famous cartoonist Art Baltazar, and he had invited me behind the table, and we hung out all day. And that was my first time kind of behind the table, and I know all of his work, forwards and backwards, so I was able to start slinging books for him and stuff like that. And then you were walking around and you greeted Art, and you guys, I look at you two and I'm just like, well, these guys know each other. I'm like,
Yeah.
and and then you looked at me, and then you remembered me from a couple minutes ago, and then you're like, we both kind of like pointed
Yeah.
at each other, and you said something along the lines of just like, "Oh, I didn't know you were with like, oh yeah, and Art and blah blah blah."
Yeah,
Like,
probably because I wouldn't have charged you money for like the things. So
and what was funny is I'm like, well, I didn't even know I'm with Art,
Yeah.
because it all just kind of happened with him just being like, "Hey, you want to sit down?" Because he didn't have anybody with him that
yeah.
weekend,
That's
and
awesome.
just for a 1 day convention, on
Yeah.
the road for him. And so yeah, that's where it kind of started. And then once again, running past you at C2E2, and then
Mhm.
just once again at MightyCon. So that's just kind of our origin story, basically.
Yeah, yeah, no, I do remember that. So that was, yeah. But usually it's just like, oh, if you're a friend of a friend, like I should, should not charge you money for that stuff. So Art's a good guy. Like you can't go wrong with Art. Art's awesome. So
Yeah.
actually, I guess this could be an exclusive. I just finished a 4-page Action Cat little
Ooh.
insert for I think issue 17 or 18. So stay
You
tuned
know,
for that. So did that for
that's
Art.
that's
So
pretty awesome
yeah.
because I'm waiting on the official confirmation when, but I've got several things that have been approved, whether it's
Oh,
a pinup, whether it's story related, written and drawn. So our
nice.
names may be sharing in a book that we,
That'd
yeah,
be awesome.
Yeah.
Exclusive, right? Coming right now.
look at
Stop
that.
the presses.
You
So
heard it here first.
yep.
We finally have some good clickbait that.
There we go. Perfect.
So that's where it all started, and that's where we started to find out who we were, started to hang out, and that led
Mhm.
to what we're talking about here today, with myself and David setting up at Mighty Con in Milwaukee. And while it's still pre-show before the customers are let in, then Greg, out of the people that we have here, is the first one to just stumble upon our table with a coffee in hand and ready to hang out. And yeah, and that's when it started. So it's so cool to kind of, for me to be on the other side of the table and you to walk up to my art table.
I mean, come
Yeah, yeah.
on. How could I not? Number
I know
one.
I didn't
I
have
got to
Art
meet
Belt.
David too that day. So
Yeah.
like that was awesome. Coffee in hand pretty much sums me up until like maybe 2, 3 in the afternoon, I feel like. So but yeah, no, that was awesome meeting with you guys then and just kind of catching up. And I know that we had talked, I think mostly at C2E2, probably when I had some downtime,
Yeah.
about like, oh, you should do MightyCon, like get a table. Like it's a great show for like getting your feet wet in that realm of like being a vendor or artist or whatever, because the stakes are a little lower. It's not committing to like a 3-day show. The price point is great for it as far as like our side of the table,
Yeah.
where it's something that's a very achievable goal to like make that money back and then some. So
Super local. So yeah,
yeah,
travel expenses and all that stuff is just kind of just wrapped in
yeah.
there.
So that, I mean, like you can't go wrong with like a quick Midwest drive, I guess, to go to a show. So
And while I didn't have Art Baltazar with me behind the table, but I had the next best thing there with David Gloyd. So yeah, so that's where you two have interacted then. So yeah,
Yeah,
now everyone's all caught up at home. So
yeah. So
so
it's a good time. So no,
Yeah,
Mighty Con's
next time I gotta get over to your table, and I actually have to make myself get from behind our table and like go venture out because I have the tendency to, unless I have to go use the bathroom or something, like, oh, I gotta stay at my table.
Oh no, I'm the same way. I actually have like, I mean, at some point, like, me getting up, it has to happen, like no matter how busy it is. So like, I'm sure Anthony, if you were at my table at a certain point at C2E2, it's like, all right, you're a good guy. I'm going to entrust you to watch my
sure.
table while I run to the bathroom real quick. But like I've also like just created a sign with like a crude drawing of myself that says, I'll be right back. Like so that
Yeah,
works to a degree. Like
yeah,
so
people actually waiting for you. The line, it's just
and they're just
right out
around
the
the
door.
corner all the time. So, so,
Where were you this whole time?
yeah. No.
So talking about the Mighty Con experience, how many Mighty Cons do you think you've done, whether it be different cities or just if you were to throw out a number, just give us an idea.
Um so I'll usually hit up for sure like the Madison and Milwaukee ones. Maybe 3, 4 times a year because I feel like they have like 2 fall
Yeah.
and 2 spring shows. I've done Quad City, I've done St. Louis with them before, but I'd say I've done that because I feel like that was kind of like one of the first shows that I ever did. Besides, like on my own for sure, I would piggyback with like other artists that were a little more established.
Yeah.
They'd give me a sliver of their table to sell stuff, and I'd be happy with that. But I want to say for like the last 7 years, 7, 8 years, I want to say. I've been doing it, I guess that times four, so maybe 28 shows altogether, give or take.
Nice.
So yeah. But I call them like my cushion shows because like it's like, oh, that was a nice little like bump, like as far as like whether I'm in the black or red for the year. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
but yeah.
Especially if you're going into something, the space, the people, just kind of.
And it's all local, so like I'm not driving. I don't have to pay for a hotel. I don't have to pay like much for gas that I would not already kind of be paying for the most part. So, but no,
Right.
the show itself is great for like if you're local to it, and even like some of them like traveling out. Like I said, I've gone out to St. Louis with them before, um, and yeah, people are always kind of there, and they seem to be hungry. I think some of the key points of that show is entry is so cheap for like attendees
Yeah.
that people are gonna not just waste their money on like a ticket entry and maybe a signature, and then it's like, oh, where'd all my cash go? So people are kind of willing to spend money too, which is always helpful on that side of the table. So
And and with you doing that many cons, and myself and David, as far as the artist goes, because David has had some vendor tables with Crimson Cowl in the past. But as we move on, because our next show will be Mighty Con in Madison in this December,
I'll see you
and
there.
well,
All right.
cool, we'll be there.
Yeah.
And so the one thing I'm real curious about is that my setup that I've had, I was pretty confident with having been a customer for 20 years, going to
Mhm.
conventions and everything like that, that I felt like I had a pretty good setup. I'm pretty comfortable with it, but I'm curious what others, how they've progressed, where you start, from your first table to now, like things that like how you developed it and what you've learned and just kind of how you kind of go with the flow. Can you speak on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, if I were to be honest about some of my first tables that I set up, like they were just trash. Like just
Yeah.
pure trash. I'm happy people stopped by and were kind enough to look at my artwork and be like, oh, there's stuff underneath this poor layout that this middle-aged man has laid out before him. So, no, with that, I feel like it's always in like a constant flux. Like even after my last show that I did in Cincinnati, I picked up something from like a friend that has like a different background. Like I have to take that idea and kind of run with it a little bit. But it's something that at every show that you do, you see something from another table or another booth, artist, vendor, and you're like, oh, that'd be neat. or you come across something that is displayed a certain way in a store even, and you're like, oh, I could adapt that and quickly travel with that small little display case. And it's in a constant flux. That's the best way I can kind of describe table
Here.
setup. So if you're ever doubting like your table, completely normal. Everybody does it. Everybody gets ideas from other people, and like it's nothing wrong about it. It's not like anybody's going to go after you and be like, wait, did you just display your comic book with this type of rack? Like, no.
Yeah, just are you out of
Yeah.
your mind? What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. So I saw somebody said that their prints in a similar thing 2 cities ago. Like, no one's going to say that. So
I'm on to you.
yeah.
And with having that, once again, having the experience of just visiting so many tables over the years and stuff, that I just, and I, my day job, I've got 25 years of retail experience. And so when it came to like kind of addressing customers and engaging all that stuff, whenever I would get tips from some people that I would ask going into the convention, they would talk about that side of the thing. I'm like, honestly, I think I have that. Like, I've
Yeah.
dealt with kind of, selling stuff and, doing that. So just the whole idea of like one of the greatest tips I had was scissors and tape. Always just have scissors
Yeah.
and tape. And things being like, oh yeah, and then if you're just in the middle of something and something breaks down, that you can quick repair or something, and little things like that.
Yeah, I have lent tape out to other fellow vendors in numerous shows. Like whether I needed it or not, it's just something that's always packed away.
Yeah.
Like I think I needed it, or I used it at Cincinnati for like tags or something were falling down. It's like, all right, quick tape,
Yeah.
boom, done. But I've also used it by just like flat out handing somebody that was like struggling to set up, like, take this roll, I'm over here,
Yeah.
come find me when you're done, like bring it back. And if you use it up, I don't care, like I'll buy another $3 roll of tape. So yeah.
Another question I'll line up, and then David, if you had anything, feel free to jump in. But the one thing I wanted to mention was going into this Mighty Con experience, we talked to some of the other artists and kind of, it's different for us with just kind of being there on a different level. And, I was just excited throughout the whole day, but with someone like you that's been to many of them, what was the kind of vibe that you got from this fall's Milwaukee Mighty Con, and just how you went with the flow?
So I know that it fell on like Labor Day. So I'd say foot traffic wasn't as busy as previous Mighty Cons, but I still engaged a lot. And I feel like this one, there wasn't any pressure to like, oh, I got to help this person. Oh, here's a new person. Oh, that person that just came up or has been sitting at my table is one of my regulars, and I've been ignoring them for like 5 minutes talking to this person. So this one, I'd say, is a little more low key. Like it still did well, but it was low key in the sense that I could still engage with individuals that were new to my work, which was kind of fun. Felt like a Friday of a 3-day show when, there are people there, they're definitely buying stuff, but it's more of a one-on-one as they're coming up.
So yeah, if it ever were to get hectic, dealing with maybe the less foot traffic, you were able to concentrate a little more and like you said, engage. So that probably helped. Yeah.
So, but no, otherwise, like it was good. Overall, like Mighty Cons are always fun. Like I feel like depending on where in the Midwest you are, specifically Wisconsin, depending on the time of year, if it's cold, people want to do something and they're going to come out. Like, so, yeah.
That's what I keep thinking about with Madison coming up. We know that,
harsh right around the holiday too. So like, people are going to be looking for stuff.
Yeah. And it's far enough before, like Christmas and everything that that people might still be, even for themselves, willing to buy in whatever without going, oh wait, I gotta hold on to this because I get Christmas coming up. But it's also close enough to it that they can also, potentially be buying gifts for people with the holiday coming up.
So. I feel like that definitely, David, like that seems to be a norm with most shows, like the closer you're getting to the holidays, like there are a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm gonna shop for my brother. Like he likes the Fantastic Four and you have a Fantastic Four print or whatever it may be. It definitely the turnout and engagement is definitely has like an uptick around the holiday season versus like it's the beginning of summer and everyone's out of school and planning their family vacation type of thing. So
Yeah. Well, another thing that you kind of look at, like the Madison one, that's going to be a Sunday show, where some of them are Saturdays, and I know I'm trying to remember if I've done. I think I have done one in actually Madison before that might have been on a Sunday, um, but that's one of the things you think of is like, oh, is it going to be slower because it's on a Sunday versus a Saturday, and people are probably more likely to get out and whatever on a Saturday. So that's another thing that you start thinking about when you're preparing to go, or even deciding, hey, am I going to go to this one? It's on a Sunday. Is that going to affect things?
Yeah, I think like for Madison, like you luck out with like the Sunday show because I feel like they've had them on Saturdays, but then it's like, oh, the Wisconsin Badgers are playing on Saturdays, and like the town pretty much shuts down. So it's like lesson learned years ago when it used to be in a different hall. Even like, don't do that. Just push it on a Sunday when there's no football besides a Packer professional stuff going on. So.
And to get some good advice from an established illustrator such as yourself, going into Madison Con in December in Wisconsin, with all of my sketch cards that are left over from the last one, should I draw Santa hats on all of them to try to?
I mean, you could, or just like get little stickers and like
there we go. Yeah,
stickers like on top of them.
I'll have them in the sleeves and put the Santa hat stickers on the sleeve, and then
you can remove it as you want. See, there you go.
Season.
Pro tip: just throwing them. I don't know, that would watch like sales plummet for you, and you can just blame me after that. So,
although most of my sketch cards are Archie characters, and I feel Archie and Christmas seem to kind of go hand in hand.
Work. Yeah, it'd be weird to like. For me, it's like, oh, Daredevil has the Santa hat on. Like, the Thing, really? He's Jewish. Why would he have one? So like, yeah. So
yeah, this one I can't move this one for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know why. So
another thing too that I'm kind of curious, like depending on, I don't know how far you've gone for a convention. You've definitely went out of state. I don't know if you've ever went out of country, but the one thing I want to know is like if you had a dream convention location, whether it's just something for vacation purposes, be like, oh, it'd be fun to do a convention here and then also sightsee. Do you have anything that kind of pops into mind?
I mean, as far as like I pretty much like will drive Midwest. I've flown with my stuff a few times. Like I've been out to like DC. That one was a great vacation spot because there's so much to see over there. But like I'd say bucket list would be San Diego Comic-Con, just to check that off my list. I know that I got accepted once, and then I saw the price of hotels around the convention center, and I was like, ooh, I don't think on a good day I can make that much back. So I think I politely like bowed out. But it's still on my list to do. It's just one of those things that's like, well, this is going to be a personal trip for Greg more so than anything else.
I always think about San Diego because I've never been as a fan, but I always think about those hotels and just the money spending, and I'm just like, I get a lot out of the Chicago cons. I love my C2E2s and such, and so if I need a big con experience, Chicago has never failed.
They have plenty, like, and then like even like mid to like little ones, like you can always find something. I feel like in the Chicago area, like again, I love Madison. I definitely hit up Chicago a lot more, like in Chicagoland for like shows. But that's just where I'm located at, I guess. So, but no, otherwise, yeah. I mean, international will be fun. I feel like when I fly though, I'm already like a nervous wreck. Like, oh, is my stuff gonna make it? Like it's all like with the baggage, like
they lost your luggage. Your luggage was everything that you really needed. The whole point of you going.
Yeah, like I mean, like I've had like those like fever like sweat dreams like on the airplane, just like clenching like the thing, just like, oh, I hope it's there, please just make it there. I don't care if it gets destroyed on the way back, I can print everything out again. But yeah, So
Otherwise,
flying, yeah.
otherwise, it'd be drawing a lot of sketch cards on the fly. Literally
Yeah,
on the fly.
yeah, it'd be like just staying up late. So,
And that's what when I was doing, I had a bunch of construction paper sketches that I just sold for $1 that I had on the table,
mhm.
and that was all inspired from the Oh Yeah guys, because Art and Franco and
Oh,
all of
yeah.
them. A night before a show, years and years and years ago, they would have a contest on who could draw the Flash the quickest, no pun intended, but Superman, Spider-Man, and they just at the end of the day, almost like what your the comic shop buddy that you said,
Yeah.
they just had a pile of the sketches, being like, "Well, what do we do with these now?" Being like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, throw $1 of them on the show at the show
There
or
you go.
something," and
Yeah.
then everybody loved them. So going into my first
Awesome.
convention, I kind of want to take that spirit. While I can't draw as fast as those talented, famous cartoonists, but fast for me, they were super fun. And then I'm like, yeah, I'll just throw $1 on there, and
Yeah.
some people come up with $5 and start picking a couple of them, and they all had my information on the back, and it just felt cool for every literal dollar that somebody was
Yeah.
like, hey, I want to own this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, and I really have to challenge myself to do those because I started out to do that, but I'm just such a critic of my work that like I try to
Oh.
do one quick and then I'm like, well, I just add this and I get it, and half an hour later, you know, I've got this. I'm like, well, this is now more than $1.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that because like where like the sketch cards that I make, like I guess I've come over that hurdle of like, well, I don't like the way that hand looks, but it's a sketch card. It's
Yeah.
just like boom, it's done, move on. And like it's such a hurdle to get over that because like I would not have drawn like the creature like that if given like a larger space and time. Yeah, I'm happy with aspects of it, but then I'm like, ooh, I would have done that differently. Oh, I would have done that differently.
And whereas I
But,
got
like,
it, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I love it. So
yeah, but then there's me just like, I
Yep.
don't know. But then it's like, nope, I can't. I can only commit like this much time, and I need to like cut it off at some point, and it's hard. It's hard. Like, but
yeah, just kind of an artist, kind of just having their own self-worth and just kind of how they always perceive it. And you can kind of like with this here, you could sit there and pick out several things, and I could be there like, oh man, I wish I could do this, like it's all just kind of relative to whoever's.
I feel, yeah, and I feel like that's just like the self-doubting artist that's constantly critiquing themselves, like because things that I love that like I will complete today, give me 3 years, and I'll be like, oh, I hate this thing, like.
But see, then on the opposite end of it, my other fear is that I'm gonna draw something and I'm just gonna love what I did and be like, I don't want to sell this now.
Well, that's when he just took that one away, like in the pocket, and just like,
I I had
turn it
it
into print.
for the Archie Art Challenge. There was a Riverdale prompt, and I chose Luke Perry, who played, was
Yeah.
Fred Andrews on there. And it was a different style where I took it, more realistically, didn't do it cartoony, just did it, pencil, didn't even ink it. And I liked it so much. And it was Luke Perry, and it's, just with everything that had happened to him.
Yeah.
It was one of those where I'm like, I do want to keep it, but I can't hold on to everything. I put it in the binder. Nobody bought it, but when I left the con, I'm like, now it's mine again. I get to keep it.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, and I know you were kind of like the same way with your Animaniacs, where you're kind of like, I hope nobody buys these.
I thought that was going to be one of the things that people were just going to be like, oh, I need those right away, and then nobody did, and I'm like, good, now I can keep them.
And so you can just tuck them away in the back, like keep them separated around, like from each other, so that way, like people won't see all three together
Yeah.
and be like, oh, I need all three of these. Like they'll just be like, oh, he just has dot. Like,
Well,
I need that
but then
too.
when you put them together, somebody will just be like,
Oh,
oh,
I need that.
I'm just
yeah.
gonna buy dot.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
That's
thinking that,
true.
anytime I posted my art, I just thought I would put a sold stamp on it, because technically it's all sold to me until I
That's
decide
true.
to sell it to somebody else. So everyone would be like, man, his stuff is flying off the shelf. He just posted it and it's sold already.
I know. It's amazing. See, these are all the tricks and tips that
Yeah. Just fool your way through the industry.
yeah, just gotta fake it till you make it. So
Well, like the book that I had, my sketch cards in. I left spaces in there. I'm like, yeah, it's my first show, but yeah, I sold these already.
yeah.
That's why there's
no,
a
yeah.
spot.
Oh, you got to get them now. They're just going like, look at all the holes. No, I mean, I'm guilty of doing that too. So like when it's like, oh, I
Marketing
could
101.
draw. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's marketing 101. So
I know, yeah, and it's just like, like I could draw and fill up like this full page, or I could just start spreading them out a little bit more on a Saturday at a 3-day show. I'm like, they're just flying. It's flying, guys. You got to get them.
or just wait for guys like me to come by and be like, "Yep, I'm gonna need that one there, so I'll take that."
That's nothing. I've had people that have like bought like the full sheet because I'm like, I'm gonna draw all the X-Men. And then it's like, I'll buy all of it. On one hand, I'm like, yes. But then the other hand, I'm like, oh, now I need to redraw all the X-Men again. Like,
I think, yeah, David had something like that with one of a 2-piece sort of set with the fish, the DC fish.
Yeah, I did. So I did the Shark Knight,
ooh,
and
I like it.
And then I did the Clownfish of Crime. And they kind of went together.
Yeah.
And yeah, somebody came up and bought the Shark Knight one, and then somebody else came up that knew that both of them were in there and was like, "Oh, I was gonna buy those, but somebody bought the Shark Knight." So they didn't buy the other one either.
Yeah.
Well, that's gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap it up and all that stuff here, I don't know if there's anything else that David you wanted to throw out that was lingering in your brain. Otherwise, we will move on to the next one.
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Good. So yes, that is just kind of a recap with Greg Schmidt. It was awesome to have you here. A couple years ago, when buying this art from you, I didn't ever think I would be having you on a show that I host. That's kind of just a thing.
I appreciate the invite, guys. It's been a blast. So
yeah, it's a whole Mighty Con recap, and I'm not sure which order the artists are going to be in. So you're either going to jump to another artist or you're going to jump back to David and I. But it was awesome to have you on, and can't wait to hang out with you again in December, Madison.
That's right.
Yes, and I was going to say it was a pleasure to meet you. Good to see you again, and I'm looking forward to next time.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Dave.
And even though I think you said that was your didn't have any other shows until then, is that correct? Just
so I thought Cincinnati was initially going to be the last show, because usually, like, based in Madison, it snows here soon, like reality. So like I usually don't like traveling too much in the snow, because then driving back home in the snow is like a real pain in the butt. So usually like I guess I'm doing a show in December, but it's like 5 minutes from my house. I can make it there on foot if need be. Like, so.
And let's say people weren't going to be at that show and wanted to contact you online. So if you can give any information, and that'll be our final plug there for you.
Sure. So if anybody wants to contact me, you can find me on Instagram, Schmidt and Giggle. You can find me on Facebook, same thing, or email me at schmidtandgiggle@gmail.com. So
sounds great. Good to see you. We'll see you again.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
We'll see you guys. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome.
All right, it's time for our next creator interview. We have artist Amy Regutti. Amy, how's it going?
Good. Hello.
So, you're part of a collection of artists that I have in this very video special. People that I would visit the table of through Milwaukee Mighty Con. So each artist that I have on, I basically want to kick it off with saying what drew me to their table. And the first thing going through Mighty Con, I happened to see this beautiful here. Now, what do you call this?
Oh, that's off season.
Off season. So yeah, this was something that I saw. I saw a couple other things that I would eventually buy, but once I saw that, I'm like, I just love the design. It's so different and specific, and just I right away I'm like, nobody else has something like this. So that's what kind of drew me in.
She's been very popular.
So yes, that was the one there, and then I was happy to pick up at this latest Milwaukee Mighty Con that we will jump into talking about. But I had to get a little swamp monster here.
Yeah.
You have a specific title for this one?
Oh, that's where the broken hearts stay.
Yeah, this one's great. You have a lot of great design work with your swamp monster, as we call it, and yeah. So I knew this one had to be in the collection there. These are some good examples for people that are watching that don't know that aren't familiar with your art. So if you can give a quick little pitch on who you are and what you do, and then we can dive into the little conversation.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. I mean, I'm a painter first and foremost, and I went to school for painting back in like 1984. But I went to this school and I went originally for illustration, and I did not like it because I didn't want to draw anything that somebody told me to draw.
There you go.
So then I switched to painting, but the painting department was this, just kind of leave you alone by yourself and not really teach you. So it was odd. I got a painting degree, but really I had no education in painting.
You just kind of
So
picked it up and learned.
yeah, and then I didn't make any art for 15 years after I graduated because I was working for galleries in Chicago, and there was a big art market crash at the time, and everything was closing up. It was just a really odd time, and I had a kid, and I was like, oh, I need to make money, and so I just kind of had to just push it aside. So I started painting again in 2011, and then I've been painting ever since. And I really like the Comic Cons. I love comic books. I feel like comic book artists are the best. I respect them the most. I think they're like the Da Vinci's,
Love it.
and so I'm definitely a hybrid. Like I just love graphic work, even though I don't do it myself. I love comics, even though I don't do them myself. And I just love like retro surrealism, combining old and new popular images together is kind of my jam, like a time machine of sorts.
Cool.
But so I just kind of ride the wave wherever it takes me. I like to, I just try new things.
That's definitely what we're seeing here with your paintings. So let's talk about Milwaukee Mighty Con. So Mighty Con in general, not just the one that we recently attended, but what kind of attracted you to doing Mighty Cons? Have you done anything prior to that to kind of give you a experience with the kind of clientele?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how on earth I even signed up for the first one. I think, it was here in Madison.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think if it was right out of COVID, I think.
And have you done any conventions or shows prior to that, or just Mighty Con?
I did a lot of shows with a couple funny art galleries out in Indiana, some in Chicago. But I was really still just getting started. Okay. Showing my work. So I'd been showing in Indiana and Chicago, and then I was reading a lot of, like, I was reading Paper Girl and
Awesome.
I can't remember the other one that was so popular, but I've been reading comic books, and and I'm just so attracted to it, even though I don't do it. And so the Comic-Con came along, and I thought, I wonder whether I'm sort of this crossover, whether anybody would be interested in my work. And so I just thought, well, what the heck? I don't have anything to lose but my dignity, which who cares? So it was very affordable. And I thought, well, the worst thing that happened is I'm a middle-aged person who I just sit there all day and everyone walks by. Sure. And, that does happen sometimes. Yeah. But, much to my surprise, it didn't. And I met people there right away. I got a little account at a store right away because of that. I had offers for commissions. it was really very positive. And so then I just did some more from there.
Yeah, that's what I've really liked about Mighty Cons, where I go to a lot of the Chicago cons for like the big comic book conventions, and they bring in all the big celebrities and stuff like that. They still have their artist alley,
Yeah.
they have their gaming, they have their cosplay. Pretty much everything you could want is at those big cons. But going to Mighty Con, it feels pretty good because while they still once in a while bring in a celebrity or two here and there, I like how it still gives that kind of old school comic book flea market vibe. And
Yeah. Yeah, it's
um,
small enough that it's kind of like a little family,
yeah,
and I equate it to being like a carnival member.
there you
To
go.
me, it's like a traveling carnival. And so it has this kind of like family appeal, I think,
Definitely.
So instead of a
that
carny,
I
you're a
personally like.
connie.
That was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So with Mighty Con Milwaukee, so that had happened beginning of September of 2023. In this very episode, myself and David went to at length talking about us being there as artists for the first time. David had was a vendor there for Crimson Cowl and over the last handful of years or so. But it was a new experience for us. And one of the cool things that I talked about with the other artist guest is that after being a fan and a customer of the people on this very show, it was cool to see those people kind of return the favor and stop by. And we ran into you just by coincidence. You were just looking for your
Oh,
table.
yeah.
Right in
Helping me
front of
find my
us.
table.
And David was dealing with that, and I'm like, well, I don't know where anything is, and I'm setting up my stuff for the first time, and then I'm like, oh, it's Amy. Hello. So it was just kind of funny just how that had
I
happened.
know.
And here
I
we
know
are.
it was very funny.
And
Yeah,
go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
All I was gonna say is that I would stop
I-
over by your table. I had some time to run over. I'd watch, see if there's any action going over at my table while David was covering for us. But I had to make the stops at the people that are on this episode, and then you came around and also did the same thing. So I appreciated that just because it felt cool to kind of know people there, and it made me. It didn't
Oh
feel like
yeah,
yeah. It didn't make
it's
me
very
feel like I was a
supportive
freshman.
and
Yep,
right. And I mean, I
like I said,
started off the same way. I went to big, sorry,
I think we have a
I
little
went to
del
big
yeah,
Chicago cons too.
Yeah, just enough of a
We do. We
delay
have a
that we're
little
talking
gap.
over each other.
Yeah.
yeah, just a
Can
tiny
I
bit of
talk?
delay, but we're getting there. We're
Okay.
getting what I was gonna say is
Okay. Sorry.
nope, that's all right. It rather than feeling like I was a freshman getting stepped on by all these carnies, if you will. But then it felt good just to have the people come up, and it kind of made everything legitimate in that sense of like, yeah, we deserve to be here, right? So that's all I kind of want to say. That's how it felt with having the friends stop over. So
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And I will say that the first one I did in Milwaukee, I did feel somewhat insecure because my impression was, or am I going to get kicked out because I'm not a comic book artist? And, but I remember I met Terry Huddleston's wife.
okay,
He is a cartoonist. He does comic books and he does like fan art. It's really beautiful. And she was so nice to me, and she said you absolutely should be here. And I had a couple other comic book artists that I said they asked me some questions, and I said I don't know if I'm really supposed to be. And they're like, you should absolutely be here. And so that was really, really helpful to me. And I kind of needed that to hear. It was good to hear that, and everybody's very kind. And one of the things they say there is if you see somebody sitting on their hands, then go spend money at their booth.
there you go.
So I always thought, wow, that's really, that's like community,
Yeah, and next to us, behind us, we had some young artists and artists to the other side of us, and then we had I think like a novelist and illustrator. So you're kind of just surrounded, and then you got flea market stuff, whether it's toys, collectibles, comics.
Yeah.
But it felt kind of cool to kind of have all of that together in one, rather than being like, hey, if you sell toys, you should just be over here. If you do this, you should. I like the idea that we're all kind of thrown in there together, because every table you come across, someone may not, if someone's going there specifically for comics, they may never find, what you do with your paintings if they're just going through back issue bins, just because you're the next table and they get to see that. So I like that, how everyone's just kind of thrown in.
Yeah, it kind of keeps people moving around and looking at things, and they like to see something different, they also don't want to see, they don't want that much redundancy. And I think I told you I did a Comic-Con in Brooklyn.
Okay,
and
yeah.
I traveled out to New York and whoop. You good?
You good? We're good.
And it was yeah, I can hear you. We just had like a little freeze up there.
Okay, yep. You went to Brooklyn?
Yeah, I went to Brooklyn and I had a great time, and it was a really beautiful event. And but it was funny that the vendors at the Mighty Cons, it was more variety. So I think that, it was, even though it was a really wonderful event in Brooklyn, the event in the Mighty Con was actually sort of a more interesting vendor event, in terms of variety. And some of the cons, I think, even the big one in Chicago, some of it gets really redundant. Like they try to fill that big space, but you've got some of the same, like the vendors selling exact items, like, and that gets exhausting when you're, an attendee and it's a big space like that. So I don't know what their formula is, but somehow they're shaking the bushes the right way and they're getting, all kinds of interesting people in there.
And we talked with our recent club guest, Winston Gambro, who I met at Fan Expo in Chicago in August this year. So just a couple weeks before our Milwaukee Mighty Con. And him and I both kind of had the same opinion that their Artist Alley was kind of a mess. Like it was just, you didn't even know where the rows were, and there's so many things that just kind of intersected, and that might play into what you're talking about, where there's just so much going on and they're just filling space, and they're like, all right, well, we can fit more rows this way, whether or not it makes sense. It was very hard to find people.
Yeah.
A big one. But when you're doing MightyCon, basically, you could literally see everybody, and still and that's great because it gives you plenty of time and you could circle back. And
yeah, definitely.
But no, I get it. I've been to some bigger ones too, where you're just walking around and you'll see people that have like the same toys, and you're like, wait, is this a different one? I've seen this before, and you start wondering, are you walking around in circles and seeing the same things? And then you realize, no, it's just that there are so many vendors that have similar items that it does become redundant. I know there's some smaller cons that I know, like when you're applying to get a table to, they will ask like what you have, because they don't want to put too many people that are selling the same items there. But a lot of cons don't ask you that because they want people. So
Yep.
It just happens to be that you've got them. So as a vendor, you try to do something a little bit different with your setup in case you do have something, so that you stand out a little bit from the other people who might have similar items.
And that's a great segue into what I wanted to ask Amy, is that with all your Mighty Cons that you've done, any of your, the street market shops and pop-ups, anything you do for that, how has your setup evolved, and kind of like, what do you take from one experience to the next of how you can, or do you kind of have a for sure thing that you just have a certain way? Can you kind of talk about how you present?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the first one I did, I didn't have anything. So I just borrowed like a magazine rack. I mean, my setup was pretty hilarious. It was
Yeah.
just like a black tablecloth, uh, uh, and then a magazine rack that was from like, I don't know, 1950. I don't even know where this thing came from. And you know, like a couple little boxes of things. I didn't have any kind of real signage. I didn't have grids. I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I just learned by looking at what other people were doing. And I went on YouTube and searched some stuff. Um, and that helped. And it has evolved. Like the one thing I did do was I did spend a lot of money and get a nice tablecloth made. And so that was a major expenditure, but one that was needed. And I mean, I know I should put stuff up behind me. Everybody does those. They're
Yeah.
like, what do they call them? A photographers, something, those tripods that raise up.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But you know, it all costs money. And also I'm by myself and I have some like physical challenges. And so I really have to keep things very manageable for myself.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I did invest in like a folding grid, which is really nice. I invested in the better tablecloth. I invested in, you know, a bigger rack on my table. And so slowly I did add things. And I feel like it's pretty good. You know, I mean, it could be better, but it's good enough.
You kind of have a routine down and you kind of figured it out. You're probably a big step from your first convention. You know, you went, you know, from where you started, you're probably sitting pretty right now. So
Yeah, it's okay. It works, you know, works for me. And you know, once in a while I think, oh, it's really small. I should get cubes and all this stuff. But also I'm selling art prints and um they're just a little different to people do like to be able to touch stuff. And so they like to look through it, you know. I mean I use like past business experience that I have as well. Like I'm very careful about my price points. You know, I make sure that I have like $3 up to $300, and I keep it in there. And so I make sure that there's something for everybody because I know what that's like. You know, you have an artist you really like, and maybe you don't have any money to spend. There's a lot of people that show up at Comic Cons that don't have any money. And it's nice to be able to share your art. They appreciate it and they can buy a sticker or a button and they come away with something that they really like. And you get to have this great positive experience with them, that one-on-one experience, you know, it's really nice.
excellent. And what are your thoughts on this particular Milwaukee Mighty Con? You know, it fell on Labor Day weekend. Just kind of curious, just how, you know, what you thought of the experience, and if you felt any sort of change on what you're used to at all.
Yeah, it was definitely a different vibe. There were definitely some vendors that felt that they weren't as well supported. And in that way, I mean, you know, people were just sort of walking by their booth, like not even looking, you know. And I did notice that I probably would have made less myself, except that I had a couple of my more sort of like what I call serious collectors stop by, and so they come by and they purchase more, you know, than a sort of regular attendee would. But I think there were a lot of people that were there visiting, and they were there just for something to do, and that they had no intention of buying anything.
Sure.
So you could tell, you know. And what I noticed is I told the guys across from me because they were, you know, they had all this great stuff, and people were just sort of walking by, and so I shared their booth on Instagram and went over and looked, and I thought, what is going on here? And I realized at the end of the day that in the beginning, the first hour, you have the really like devout comic collectors show up, the guys that stand there and look through every comic book, and they have an agenda, they have a shopping list, and they weren't there. Like there were some, but not as many. And I think that because of the holiday, they might have been somewhere else.
Yeah.
Maybe they were visiting family or something. So, it was a very festive day and there were lots of people, but it was a slightly different mix than what I've seen in the past.
For sure. In talking about conventions in general, what I've asked the other guests is that if you had a dream location to set up your booth at, whether it's for personal reasons, if for traveling and things like that, do you have a location that pops in your mind that you would love to set up and experience it all?
Well, I was really glad I did Brooklyn because my son lives there.
Okay.
So that was a really cool experience. I'm tempted to do it again. But it was an experience but traveling and doing a Comic-Con is very different, and the people that do that, they've got a lot of tricks. Like they have these giant suitcases and you got to bring all your stuff. I had to ship stuff out there. So that it's kind of a whole different experience and one that I'd recommend for sure. I mean, it's just it's an adventure,
Yeah.
So that was a good one. I'd love to do Philadelphia. I'd like to do Philly. Just because my other son lives there. And Philly's a cool place. And they do have that St. Louis one. And I've never done that, but I like St. Louis.
Okay.
And I don't know, I'd like to do the other ones, the New Orleans one. I'd like to do the St. Louis one, but I have to say Philly's a really interesting place. And maybe LA.
Cool.
Yeah.
And as we kind of wind down here, I don't know if there's anything, David, if you had to throw in yet. Otherwise, we'll jump into some plugs.
No, I think we've got covered anything that I was going to throw in.
Good. So, speaking of conventions, is there any upcoming shows or anything that you want to promote? We're going to try to get this out as soon as possible so that it makes sense. And
Gosh, I have so many.
or where could they find
what
that
am I
information?
doing?
Or where could they find that information, perhaps?
Let's see. I'm doing a couple of pop-ups at the Garver Feed Mill here in Madison, and they're just like these very casual affairs. They're outside. I'm doing the night market, and is that next week? I think so. Let's see. Oh, it's the 19th.
You did something like that recently, right? Like a
Yeah.
night one?
They have it once a month here in Madison, and that's a lot of fun. And I would recommend, anybody can do that. Though they do choose you, it's a juried event.
Okay.
But that one's a fun one. So I'm doing that, and then I have let's see, I have I'm doing a really fun event that I'm really looking forward to at Meepleton's. It's on Willie Street in Madison. And it's a store that's run by Dave, and I can't remember his last name. That's terrible. But he has all kinds of like comic book stuff in there. It's like a nostalgia store,
Okay.
all kinds of old toys, the craziest stuff you ever seen. But he's got like it's like a comic, trades and vintage stuff and all that. And that's coming up on the 14th. And then I also am in the show out in Buffalo, New York, Something Wicked at Revolution Gallery, and that's on the October 3rd, Friday the 13th. So I'd say those are the big ones. Then I'll have a Comic-Con in December, a Mighty Con.
Which is our next convention. Me and David will be doing another round. So yes, we will be there at Madison Mighty Con as well.
Oh, excellent. That's great. It's a good one. It's really sweet. I always do really well.
Yeah, I've had really good luck at the Madison ones.
Yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
it's a nice event.
And then for those that are watching, how can they find you online? I'm going to put the links up afterwards, but if you can just kind of talk about, what social medias and websites and where they can find you.
Yeah, I would say I'm most active on Instagram, and that's at Space Throb. And then from there, I have, you can go to the link in my bio, and I have an Etsy store if you want to buy prints or little buttons or whatever. And then I do have a website, amyreguttiart.com, which I have to say I neglect quite a bit because I'm not a good techie, and changing all those photos and stuff is a lot of work for me. But and I do Facebook, but honestly, Instagram is the best place to find out what I'm up to.
And then because you mentioned Space Throb being your brand, your handle, all that stuff, can you talk about the origins of that, or where the name came from?
Yeah, everybody has the either wrong or right idea about.
Sure, it's interesting.
So I started off when I started painting again. I started doing these portraits of these kind of space girls. And you know how they always used to call somebody a heartthrob,
Sure.
like back in the day. So I just came up with space throb, which of course also, sounds really erotic or whatever, which I think is really funny. But that's how it started, was with these, kind of crazy space girls that were floating through space. And so I just kept it because I thought it was funny. And, I really enjoyed it because, and I do the same thing. I never can remember anybody's name. It's terrible because of Instagram. And people just come up and they're like, "Are you Space Throb?" Space Throb. I'm like, "Yes, I am currently."
Good that you get a laugh out of it rather than the kind of being like, "What did
I'm gonna keep it so I can keep laughing about it because it's just so. I'm gonna be an old lady, I'm Space Throb.
Well,
So.
even though you said you don't work in the comic book space or anything like that, but I would say if I was flipping through these giant catalogs where we order our comics and I saw a Space Throb comic, I would 100% buy it. So just saying.
Yeah, I do dream about making some kind of I keep telling myself I'm gonna make a zine at least,
I was gonna say like a pinup, a zine.
Yeah, some kind of I mean I'm very tempted. It's really hard because painting is very busy and I have a lot of commitments, but I'd love to take 6 months off and just see what happens.
For sure. Well, cool. All right. I think that's going to do it then. It was awesome to meet you over the years and pick up these gorgeous prints here of your paintings, and then to have you once again stop by our booth after David helped you find your booth.
Yes, thank you, David.
Oh, you're welcome. I look forward to helping you find your booth in Madison.
That's what happens when you don't get enough sleep.
If David wasn't there, you might still be there looking for him.
Still be there.
We're glad that we're able to get you on this Zoom, but it was cool to reach out to some of my favorite people from Mighty Con, bring them here, kind of hear about the experiences and everything. So yeah, thank you once again.
Yeah, thanks so much. And it'll be great to see you two again at the Madison Mighty Con. It's so fun, Now we can all stick together.
Yeah.
Sounds good. We'll move on to the next segment here. So thank you. Those were the little interview hangouts with the artists. That it was so awesome to see them at the show. Definitely check out their stuff and follow their social media. You'll see all the links and stuff as they were talking. Awesome to have them on, as well as Kerby for coming on for Under the Cowl of MS to talk about his experience at Mighty Con. That was a lot of fun as well. I assume we haven't recorded it yet, but it's always a good time. So yeah, that is going to do it then for this Mighty Con Milwaukee wrap up. The first time that David and I had tabled together as artists out in the world, starting to, kind of branch out and kind of start these journeys. Things that we've always had the passion for, and now just kind of it all seems to kind of be coming together at the same time, and I'm excited for what's happening in the future, especially with the Madison Mighty Con that we're talking about and some other things that we're talking about behind the scenes to try to set up, as well as looking into 2024 and seeing if this could be a thing that we could continue doing. But the thing that we know that we'll continue to do is stuff that all happens here at Crimson Cowl Media that starts with crimsoncowl.com. You can go to crimsoncowl.com for all the information of things that we've been talking about, for the information about the podcast and the movies and all that stuff, including the webcomics. So I'll throw it over to David to talk about what's available on crimsoncowl.com.
All right, so yeah, you can go on there. You're going to find out a little bit about us and what we do. There's going to be some links to our podcast. There's going to be some links to our YouTube videos. There's going to be webcomics like Tales from the North that you can enjoy for free. And there is some things in the works. We're putting on some links to some other people. As I said earlier, we're all about promoting our friends, and people that are doing some good things. So there's going to be some links to some of that as well. A lot of the people that we've talked to and worked with and whatever. So that's all stuff that you're going to be able to find on crimsoncowl.com.
Cool. And branching off from that, the things that we do here at the Crimson Cowl Comic Club, you'll see all the links in the end credits as well, in case you miss them. But the YouTube channel, which is the only way you're hearing and watching this won't be part of our iTunes feed. But Crimson Cowl Comic Club on YouTube's our normal show almost every week. We meet up with our comic club friends and talk about the books that we've been reading, whether they're new, whether they're old. We talk about them there, as well as some club discussions and some picks of titles that we are reading currently, new stuff. And then we have preview segments going through the catalogs. We'll have the recaps of any other conventions and sometimes adventures that we go on. And so yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff happening on the main Crimson Cowl Comic Club. And then we've been expanding in 2023 of doing more guest interviews, and there are some lined up on the way as well. And so you can go back and check that out. The greatness of the YouTube channel is that all of that stuff is there since we've been doing the video version, whereas iTunes has a limited space through our hosting site. So if you want the full experience of Crimson Cowl Comic Club, we are stressing the YouTube channel for especially great for the show and tell and everything, plus the back catalog. And also on the YouTube channel, we have a Hellboy book club. At this point, we do have probably like a dozen episodes recorded. I think there's 3 of them out there at the time of this recording, but as I'm getting all that stuff stitched together behind the scenes, I'm going to get it so I can just do them once a week on a specific night or something. But that's where myself and Kerby and club member Damon went through the Hellboy Deluxe Library editions. I always have a Deluxe Library edition near to you so you can promote it. Put that down because
maybe at the library. You could have it at the library and then promote it from there.
Exactly. Be much easier. So yeah, we have a series on there that's exclusive to the YouTube channel, and we go through all of the main Hellboy stories, and that was a lot of fun because most of them were read for the first time from all 3 of us. We've kind of dipped our toes in that. So that's all available on YouTube. The Crimson Cowl, all one word, on Instagram. Not too much activity going on there, but we hope to strengthen all that. There's a lot of plates spinning at this point. Crimson Cowl Comic Club on iTunes. If you could, did I say iTunes? iTunes. Go to the Tombs.
iTunes.
Subscribe. That's when you know it's the end of the show, everybody. You got to subscribe, rate, and review over at iTunes for the audio version. But once again, the YouTube version is pretty fancy. So we'll go over there and advertise that. Crimson Cowl Comic Club at yahoo.com if you want to write into us. If you have any comments or suggestions, or maybe some fun letters page questions, that's where you can throw it out to the club members and we all answer whatever silly questions you send us. So you can do that. Crimson Cowl Comic Club at yahoo.com. Kerby has his spin-off podcast Under the Cowl of MS. He does so much stuff over there. He promoted it in his segment, but check that out wherever you get your podcast, as well as YouTube. There's a lot of stuff. He basically does everything on that channel. So check out Under the Cowl of MS. I have my hobby artist accounts, which I'm now starting to call my artist accounts. I think I'm dropping the hobby thing now that I've sold some art.
But you're a professional. You've been paid for it.
Anthony Laatsch. You can see my name below, Laatsch, on Facebook and Instagram. More activities happening on Instagram, but I do the double posting from time to time on Facebook. But if you want the full experience, more of the activities happening on the Instagram. And then once again, I am the co-creator and host of Cartoonist by Night. Myself and the creators of Kid Slapshot and Happy Astronaut. Those books are over at Keen Spot Entertainment. We all hang out and draw. So we have a dozen episodes up there at this point, a couple themed episodes, whether it's about Jack Kirby's birthday at the end of August and talking about him and drawing his characters. We have a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode. We've got an Archie episode. We have an Oh Yeah Comics episode. There's a lot of those themed ones, plus a lot of random episodes where we get to draw and talk about whatever we want. So it's just 4 artist friends hanging out and drawing. We are in the works of moving on to the next phase of Cartoonist by Night by inviting on some guests, whether there are professional friends or maybe some closer friends that maybe there's somebody here on this Zoom chat right now that will probably get an invite as well. So just keep looking around, you'll find them. But yeah, we're moving on. We had a whole plan for this thing, and we're kind of moving on to our next phase to continue doing what we have been doing, but now expand and bring on some of these people, whether they're our fellow creators out at the Mighty Con tables, or if they're the people that have been doing this much longer and much more professionally at a higher scale than us. But we got some cool people on the way. So Cartoonist by Night over on YouTube. And that's going to do it. That's all the plugs, all of the direct links or the descriptions and stuff. Just follow that in the description and in the credits. And I think we have covered everything but one final thing to say. David, do you know what that is?
I think it's to be continued.
Thank you, Slimer.
Oh!
From the ashes of the greatest comic book store in the universe, these comic book fan friends band together to review new comics, graphic novels, collected editions, and the occasional back issue. Led by host Anthony Laatsch, together they form the Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast.